Hello there, and hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm just going to wait until the stream goes live to make sure that I'm hearing myself. Come on, wake up. It's the delay, so I've got to wait until it starts. Is it there yet? Come on. There we go. Hearing myself? Yep, okay, I seem to be live. Excellent. Okay, sorry about that little delay. So, I thought I would give you a transition update. So, welcome everybody, and thanks for watching. So, I'm a year in now, pretty much. I've had a whole bunch of little anniversaries leading up to it, and I've got more to come. Excuse me for the noisy vehicle going by. Let me give you an update of what's happened over the last year. For those of you who've not seen my first video, there's I have a video where I came out for the first time. That was on the 12th of January, the 12th into the 13th of 2019. We have now passed that date now. So I've been open as myself, living 100% of the time as myself for an entire year now, which is kind of cool. It's been a long time, but it's actually flown by much quicker than I would expect. So I've had some ups and downs, but mainly it's been up. So I'm happy about that. I'm afraid I can't help you with the audio being out of sync at the moment. Maybe it'll put itself back later. We'll see. But so what's happened? So I've the last time I made a video about my transition, I'd changed my name. And that's coming up to a year now. That is on the 24th of December. But before that, I've had a couple of interesting things happen. The first of which was that I had a bit of a health scare. And it was more, the health scare was more, I didn't really know, but best to get it checked type thing. So I found a lump on my breast, on my right breast. Now, something to bear in mind that the NHS wait system for transgender people is incredibly bad. It is very, very long, and I mean I'm looking. It's basically 4 years just to get hormones. If you live in America, you go to your doctors, and within a couple of weeks you'll have them. Whereas here we have this tremendously stupid gatekeeping exercise. And as a result, it takes a long time to actually get there. And there's a reason for the gatekeeping, I suppose, and that is that they want to make sure that someone's serious about it, and that they're not making a mistake. Which is kind of weird, because effectively I'm being treated like a child. The concept of informed consent doesn't seem to be a thing, which is kind of annoying. It's like, what am I, a grown up? Can I make decisions about my life? That I can join the army, or donate an organ, and all those sorts of things, but I can't make a decision about what pills I'd like to take, because I got this gender dysphoria thing. So and the reason why the waiting list is so long is because it's become a little bit more mainstream for transgender people to be around. You've got various characters, you've got Caitlyn Jenner or whatever, so people transgender characters in soap operas and things of that nature. So it's become a little much more accepting. Because it's become more accepting, the people like me that hid it for many, many years, for 20 years I hid it, And before I was 25, when I got on the internet, I, didn't really understand it, but I hid it then as well. So what happened was, so because there are more people joining the lists, because there are, I think it was 7 gender identity clinics across the UK, and one of them for children only. But the one that I'm assigned to, which is Leeds, in the northeast of England, they've got a budget for 27 people a month, and they're getting over 100 referrals a month. So you can imagine the queues getting longer and longer and longer as new people join, and it just, it's effectively not working anymore. There needs to be more capacity, needs to be more gender identity clinics, etc., etc. Or informed consent. Okay, here's the issue. You need to go away and think about it, make sure, and then, here's all the facts and things like that. Your doctor can supply these things, and then there you go. And you can take these pills if you want. That's basically the way it should be. Now for children, different story. I'm talking about for adults here. And not only that, the older you get, the more sure you are. Because I didn't just jump into this thing. I'd been mulling it over for 19 years. And the only reason I didn't come out earlier was because I was always worried about what will my mum think, what will the neighbours think, what will colleagues think, what will friends think, what will people on the street think, what will my YouTube viewers think. That was what stopped me coming out. So, and one of the other problems, of course, in the gender identity clinics thing, is that there aren't enough gender psychologists around, transgender psychiatrists. Well, I don't even know what their title is, but there aren't enough because it kills a career. It is recognised within the field as something of a career killer. So as a result, there aren't enough people, joining the NHS with that as an interest, with that as their focus part of their career. There are much more other things to go for. So, yeah, basically, I am still underneath the makeup and the hair and the clothes. Physically, I'm still a guy. The breasts, they're just synthetic things, silicone things that I wear in a bra. And it's the best I can do with what I've got while I wait. Because last February, I had the screening call. So this is the first thing, I suppose. So what happened was, in December, I went to see my doctor and asked him to refer me to a gender identity clinic. I was referred at the end of December, and then I get a letter saying please give us a call to arrange a screening appointment. And for the screening appointment, that happened in February. And the screening appointment is basically it's kind of a way to weed off the time wasters. It's like, so how are you doing? What's your health like? They ask questions along those lines. What is my weight like? And one of the reasons why that's done is because when I start taking hormones, one of the things that can happen is it increases the chances of blood clots and deep vein thrombosis. And if you've got someone that is much too heavy, if they've got a real cholesterol problem, well, having a higher propensity for blood clots when you may already have blockages in your arteries, these two things are not good in together. They can produce some very serious dangers. So there are times when people get denied hormones because they're too heavy and it would be too dangerous for them to take them. So as a part of that, I've been dieting. I've been trying to lose weight. I've lost a couple of stone. That's 28 pounds in the last 2 years. In the last year or so, year and a half. So when I had my screening call, I asked them how long it would be until my first appointment, and I was told 18 months, which puts it in, if we think about a year, December, so January, February, March, April, May, June. So should be May, June-ish kind of time that I was expecting. So, that's the stage. At the moment, I'm in, to think of it in an airport sense, I'm in the holding pattern. I'm waiting for my turn so that I can circle down and land at the airport. Now, the waiting list is 18 months for me. That was in February last year. Today, if you go to the Leeds Gender Identity Clinic website, the waiting list is 30 months. That's 2.5 years. That's crazy. And the way the system works, because I did a double check a few months ago, and basically when I saw it was 30 months, so it was 29 months then, it's gone up a bit. So when I was told it was 29 months, when I saw on their website it was 29 months, I said to myself, okay, am I going to be in 29 months or am I going to be in 18 months? And I phoned them up and I was told that, because it was 18 months from the point that I went on, but of course there are people behind me, so someone joining the queue now will be waiting 30 months. And like I say, and I have an argument that the NHS effectively, maybe even unwittingly, is discriminating against transgender people. You see, when if you have a heart condition in the UK, if you've got a heart condition, you go to your doctor's not feeling quite right or something like that. Maybe he takes your blood, maybe he just have, you have a health check and he sort of listens and it's like, oh, that doesn't sound very good. Okay, I want you to go to the hospital for, for a checkup. So what happens is the doctor writes his referral letter, and the NHS, it's the maximum they will make you wait is 18 weeks. And if they can't see you in 18 weeks, then they will outsource you to a private hospital. So you can go with Bupa or whatever, okay? So although you're an NHS patient, instead of being dealt with at an NHS hospital, they are getting someone else to do the job for them. Well, and then, based upon what they find, you end up on a waiting list. It might be something simple as like, okay, you need to take some pills, to deal with high blood pressure or an erratic heartbeat, and these will solve the problem. They may end up sort of helping you get on a diet or something because maybe the heart condition is based upon you've got high cholesterol and clogged up, arteries or whatever. But depending on the severity, depends on how long you wait. So if they think you might suddenly have a heart attack any given time now, then today, when you go for your appointment at the hospital, they might be alarmed and they say, yeah, we need you in surgery tomorrow. It could be that quick. That's rare, but you may wait a few weeks, whatever. It's based upon the need in that regard. So yay, hello everybody, thank you for watching. So what happened, so like I say, maximum you wait is in 18 weeks, and if you can't be seen in 18 weeks, then they will outsource you to NHS. Okay, now let's think about transgender people under the same category, criteria. But you're not waiting 18 weeks. You're not waiting 18 months. I mean, I am, because I got on the waiting list at the right time. But you're waiting 30 months. Now, you may think, yeah, but heart condition, having a heart attack, that's more dangerous than being transgender. You might think that, and it's a reasonable assumption to make. Except for the fact that there are a lot of transgender people who end up, self-harming and even taking pills. You have a look at the statistics, and I think it's something like, I forgot what the number was, in fact. I'm not even going to guess. But effectively, there's a large a number of people, transgender people, who have self-harmed or done a suicide attempt at some point or other. It's a very high chance. And with stuff that's gone on, the thought has crossed my mind. But I try not to go there. I try to make bad things into good things. Now, if you have a problem with someone who could commit suicide because they're not being treated in a timely manner, that is the same as... That's no different than a heart attack. The only difference is, rather than the heart breaking down, it's the head breaking down. It's the little tangled forest in there that's, causes the problem. So, being transgendered is no less of a killer than a heart condition or a kidney condition or whatever. Any of these things, because as much as the heart and the kidneys and the lungs and all these things are organs in your body, so is your brain. So, like I say, I think it's a reasonable description to say that because the 18 weeks thing doesn't apply, and it's not as if there aren't a number of transgender private clinics around. And, one of the things that I discovered recently is that I could find £1,500 and be diagnosed, and once I get the diagnosis, that's when hormones can come along. So I could go to a private transgender clinic and get diagnosed and see the endocrinologist, I believe it is, the hormone nurse, who, you get blood tests to see what amount you would need, and then you have checkups every 6 months. So I could do that, but unfortunately it means that the NHS, because the Gender Identity Clinic, they don't really like you going outside of their system. So if you go outside their system, then they effectively say, well, if you can afford to go private, then you can afford to go private for everything else, which means that you have to pay for your own prescriptions. So that could be a lifetime. Well, that would be a lifetime of prescriptions that I've got to now find, where normally NHS covers that. That's how the NHS works. It's a wonderful system. So there are other transgender people who go something called DIY. They basically go on the internet and they buy some hormones from China or something, and they experiment. Effectively, they experiment with their bodies to see what, whether it will work for them. And this can be dangerous. Remember, as I said before, it increases the risks of blood clots and deep vein thrombosis. Also increases the chances of breast cancer as well. Although at the same time it decreases the chances of prostate cancer, because I'm still going to keep a prostate. It's still going to be in there. They don't need to take that out. And what it will do, it will shrink, and won't. The chances of getting prostate cancer are tiny compared to the rest of the population. So let me just get a quick drink. Okay, so um, so as I was saying a little while ago, so in February last year, um, uh, I found a lump on my right breast, and like I say, underneath all this, I'm still male as much as it galls me. Under the makeup and the wig and the clothes, I'm still male inside. The hormones haven't changed anything towards boobs or hips or emotions, things like that. Which is one of the things I'm really interested in, because one of the things that happens when you start taking hormones is that it can mess up with your how you feel. And apparently there are transgender people who just like burst into tears or whatever. They get really emotional, and because obviously the normal levels of hormones in your body has changed, so it can have psychological effects as well. um and as someone with Asperger's, I don't really do emotional stuff very well. I don't really know what to do with it. So a part of me wonders whether I will, to use the phrase, become emotionally woke. So that's going to be interesting to find out what happens there. So anyway, so what happened was last February I found a lump, and males can get breast cancer as well. It's less common, obviously, but it happens. And so what happened was a bit tender, so I decided to go to the doctors, and and my doctor's fantastic. He really, really is. And he's a Muslim, and sometimes you wonder whether someone's religious background can interfere with their medical stuff. Now, my doctor's fantastic. He doesn't let any of that stuff. So whatever his opinion on, or whatever his churches or his mosque's opinion on what transgender people or whatever is like, he doesn't either. I don't know whether he feels it, but he certainly doesn't show it. He has treated me like a female patient all the time ever since I came out, and I said, I'm transgendered. So, he's such a really great guy. I have a lot of respect for him. So, so I get, so I go to the doctors, and he says, okay, I'd like to do an examination. So he gets the chaperone in, and the chaperone is the nurse there, or at least one of the nurses. I actually see her. I saw her today actually. So she is also the dietitian. I'm trying to lose weight. Unfortunately, I put 8 kilos on over Christmas, which I'm really not happy about, and I'm trying to get it back down again. So yeah, I went from 110 kilos to 118 kilos. Not happy. Anyway, so it's all my friend's fault. I went to visit my friend for Christmas, and he went and put chocolate in me and gave me stuff that was, I don't know, must have been high in calories or something. I don't know. So so I go to so I'm in the doctor's, chaperone's there, and the chaperone system is to protect both the patient and the doctor, because unfortunately what's happened is there's been a small number of creepy doctors that have abused their position and basically felt women up, or made examinations that were much too personal, and so that's been a bad thing. But it also protects the doctor, because there's also been a small number of false allegations made towards the doctors. So as a result, it protects both sides. So chaperone comes in and watches, as I'm examined, and he sort of felt like, and he felt under my arm as well to feel for the lymph node or something. I'm not really technical in this kind of thing, and so he so he says, right, so chaperone leaves, I get dressed, and he says, "Okay, I want you to go to the hospital. I want you to go to the hospital and get a scan." Now you can either go to the local hospital, however, because they've got they've got a male or female clinic, so it's a fixed gender clinic, and because underneath you're still male, he was really apologetic. He didn't say it in quite as harsh terms, but he like I say, he sugarcoated it very nicely. I'm sure this must be a doctor thing that they get training on how to sugarcoat things and say something that they don't, so they don't come across as being awful. Basically, think of the opposite of the Doctor off Star Trek Voyager. You probably get a better idea. Obviously, he didn't have the empathy program in there. Anyway, so he says, yeah, so got to go to the hospital, so local hospital. However, because they've got a fixed gender clinic and underneath a male, that's the one I would be assigned to. And he said that probably wouldn't be very comfortable for you. The other option is to go to Oldham, and they've got a mixed gender clinic. And he said, I've worked with the surgeon doctor there. I've worked with her before. She's fantastic, and I think you'll be more comfortable there. So, I'd say, yes, that sounds great, very good, he says. So he makes the referral and then makes the appointment, actually, at that time. And, a couple of weeks later, I go for my appointment. And again, I was treated like a female patient, treated with respect and kindness. And, it was fantastic. Well, I say fantastic. It was fantastic how I was treated. Now, for those ladies who who haven't had this happen, it's a mammogram, and the way a mammogram works is basically you've got a metal plate, and then you've got an L-shaped piece of plastic with the scanner at the top. It's basically an X-ray scanner, and what they do is they squash your boob between it, and it bloody well hurts. Now I don't know whether it hurt me more because there's not a lot there in the first place. So if you squish this part of your body, it takes a lot of pressure before it really, really hurts. Whereas you pinch here, there's not as much, and that hurts a lot more with less pressure. So maybe it was like that. I don't know. It doesn't really make any difference either way. It still hurts. And the lady doing the screening, she lied to me as well. She said it'll only hurt for 10 seconds. No. She didn't include the squashing and hurting part, and then the walking across the room, and then pressing the button, and the scan took 10 seconds, and then for another 20 seconds to come back over and let me out. So but of course, yes, it's painful, and the idea, the reason why it hurts so much is because they're trying to squash it as flat as possible. Because the thinner it is, the easier it is to penetrate, and then they've not got as much tissue to go through. So and they do it 4 times. They start squashing top ways, and then there's a sort of an angled one, so you sort of have your arm up and holding, and they do it sideways, sort of like on an angle. 4 scans later, so I'm back in the waiting room. And of course, all this time, I'm thinking, I've got a lump. What is it? Is it something? Is it not something? You kind of, you kind of worry about it. Now, I'm not like my mum. My mum is the negative kind of person that, she gets a lump and she convinces herself it's something. She's got cancer. It's got to be cancer. It's got to be. It's bound to be. And then she worries and frets about it, and then it finally comes, they do a biopsy or something, and they say it's benign, and then she's pleasantly surprised. Now my attitude to it was, well, I hope it's nothing, but if it is something, then breast cancer is one of the has one of the highest rates of success. You do whatever you take whatever pills. Maybe I'll have to go through chemo, who knows, but all the way through it, when it comes down to it, it has one of the highest success rates. It's something like in the 80s or something. Those are good odds. You know, if you went to a betting shop and the odds were 80%, you know, that's a bet worth taking. So, you know, I didn't really worry too much about it. And not only that, of course, the waiting was only 2 weeks, so I didn't have a lot of time to worry about it. It was just a short thing. So, so what happens is I get called into the examining room with the surgeon doctor, and uh, you know, she's got a pamphlet in her hand, and she says, "Good news, know exactly what it is, nothing to worry about." Um, and she said, "I got a pamphlet for you now. Something to bear in mind that it's written for Ben, because what you've got is a, you know, again, she sugarcoated it, but she said, you know, basically what I've got is a male illness, and it's kind of funny. I've got something called gynecomastia, and gynecomastia is male breast growth, and it's like it's amazing because, you know, I'm not a meant to be kind of person. I don't believe that things are meant to be. I don't believe in destiny and all that kind of stuff. I make my own destiny, I make my own decisions, and I get the consequences from that. You know, I'm a consequentialist. So, but this kind of fits to the category. You know, I can understand why people get sucked into the meant to be. I mean, think about it. Think about how it works. I go to my, you know, I have years and years worth of sitting and not doing anything about it, wishing and wanting to transition, but just being scared to because of social stuff. And then as soon as I make that decision, so in December, I ask him to refer me to a general identity clinic. In January, I feel a lump. In February, I end up getting a scan. And it turns out that my body is basically growing its own boobs. It's actually it's one of the side effects that comes from some of the medication I'm on. So, you know, but it's like I say, it's such a happy coincidence because, you know, I'm growing boobs without the hormones. How fantastic is that? Like I say, it's in that meant to be type of category. Although I don't believe in it meant to be, it's just a wonderful coincidence. And so back at last February, I had about a thumb's worth of material on my right side, and on my left side, half a thumb. And now, a year later, I've got about 4 fingers of material on this side, and about 3 fingers on the other. So, you know, I'm starting to grow my own boobs. I'm starting to get something worth, you know, you can feel it a bit now. So it's, like I say, just a wonderful coincidence. So that was the first part. So the next stage, I changed my name. I have a YouTube video from last February, the end of February, when I changed my name. And if you haven't already watched that, what happened was I went to looking through trend stuff, you know, Reddit and things like that. There was someone pointed towards this document that some trans women have written, and they wrote it for how to get through the NHS system, you know, without being slowed down by stupid things. So, for example, if someone's got really bad gender dysphoria and they've got a drinking problem to deal with it, then, you know, it says just get that shit sorted out before you go there. Because if you turn to the gender identity clinic and they say, you know, and you say you've got a drinking problem, they're going to say, okay, well, come back in 8 months when you've got that sorted out. Or it could be a year, or who knows how long now. Because this is how the system works. Because when I get to go to the gender identity clinic, I'm not going to see a gender psychiatrist, I'll see a nurse. And then I'll wait for another year or whatever it is, and then I'll see a nurse. And when they think I'm ready, then they'll let me see the gender psychiatrist, who will then tell me what I've already known about my life, that I've got gender dysphoria, and I can now transition. You know, I can now start medically transitioning, as opposed to socially transitioning, which is what I'm in at the moment. And until until that time, I've just got to sit and wait through the system. That's it. So, um, so what happened was they wrote this thing, and the first thing they say is you need to change your name, and that was a bit of a problem because it's like, oh, well, what am I going to do? Because it's like I didn't have a middle name. I'd picked as a first name, and Laura comes from. So actually, let me go back a tiny bit. So back in 1999, when I first just got on the internet and discovered trans stuff, because my reference point to transgender people back then was a prostitute on a Dirty Harry movie, who's basically sleeping with men in order to get along, in their transition or whatever. A Rocky Horror Picture Show, or a drag queen, and I wasn't anything like that. I was, from my point of view back then, I was just a guy who needed to express himself as a girl. In my head I was a girl, but I don't know, I just really couldn't make sense of it because I didn't have the tools. I didn't have a reference point to understand what it was that was going through my head. I needed to express myself as a girl in the same way as I needed to breathe. It was an instinct. And, I tried ignoring it, but it wouldn't go away. It's just one of those things. I suppose you could liken it to, someone who's gay and, they pretend that they're not, but it won't go away. Their attraction is their attraction, and, they can deny it all they want, but, it just doesn't go away. And that was the same for me. I couldn't deny it. And so when I got on the internet and discovered there were people like me, it's like, okay, now I know what it is. But I couldn't live it. And so, but the first time I found a chat room, and these were in the dial-up days, so it was all text, and I needed a name because it says put in your name. It's like, well, I've never thought about that before. Now, I was a kid of the 80s, and my two toys when I was a kid was Lego and Transformers. I really liked them, and so so it's like, well, I've got to put something. I know, I'll put the only girl Transform at that time. So I used the name RC. That's spelled ARCEE. So I went with that, and that was fine. But I used that name for 18 years. It was on a whim, but it just stuck, and it was fine. But of course, when it came to going out for the first time last August, if someone asked me my name, I didn't want to say RC because that sounds weird. That's a weird name. Where's that come from? And next thing you know, there's a 5-minute conversation about Transformers. And it's like, yeah, just you can't just throw out a name. So what happened was last summer, I was thinking about going out, and I'm like, well, I'm going to need a different name. I can't use that name anymore. So I was reading these books called the Dragonlance Chronicles, and one of the hero characters, his elven elf maiden, her name is Lorana, and I thought, oh, that's a nice name, but yeah, it's too long. It's another one of those weird names. Oh, that's a weird name. Where's that come from? Or so that's an unusual name. Where's that come from? And next thing you know, there's a 5-minute conversation about elves and dwarves and goblins and things like that. So it's like, yeah, no. So I just shortened it to Laura. So it's Laura N.A. afterwards. So I just shortened it to Laura. So that was fine. I had a first name. So when I read in that Mascara and Hope document where it says you need the first thing you need to do is change your name, then you go to your doctors and ask him to refer you to a general identity clinic. Well, I'd already done the second one first, so now I've got to change my name, and I was going to leave it until the spring or summer, but I didn't want to I was going to leave it until spring and summer until I sort of got my head around it. Well, I realise, and according to the document, it says that the General Identity Clinic considers your change of name as you being serious now. They consider that they start your transition. So if I've got to live 2 years before they let me transition, before they give me hormones and stuff, if I've got to live socially like this for 2 years, I can't leave it until the spring or summer because I've already lost 3 to 6 months. I need to do this now. Hopefully by the time I get to see a general psychiatrist at the time, so I didn't expect it to be quite as long. I didn't want them to say, yeah, well, you still got to wait, an extra 8 months because, well, unfortunately, you didn't start your transition until summer. Even though I've been living this since August, and 100% of the time since January. So let's just take another drink. Oh, thank you very much for the comments and the people saying I look nice. I appreciate that. I am fortunate that I'm good with makeup and clothes, so I can come across quite nice. Although being tall is a bit of a problem sometimes, especially when it comes to getting shoes. Anyway, so yeah, I've got to change my name, and it's like, oh, okay, well, what am I name I'm going to use? I mean, because first name sorted, keeping my surname great, but I need a middle name. I can't be a presidential assassin or a serial killer without a middle name. So it's like, okay, I need a middle name. And so what happened was I got, I'm reading it on my tablet at the time. So I then go on the internet and start scrolling down. And I'm going through all these different names. I come to number 54 and I saw Jade. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, that's perfect. Because for those who don't realise, Jade was an important part of the community I'm in. And, or partially in there. So she died in 2018 and I told her about myself a couple of years before. And I said to her one day, I wish my mum would accept me for who I am, but she doesn't. She just can't get her head around it. And Jade said, well, I'll be your mum if you like. I mean, she was such a wonderful person. And so she was a cyber mum to me. So when she died, it was incredibly upsetting. And I went to a funeral and I gave a little speech on the boat and my voice is breaking down. And most people didn't know this. There were only 4 people, I think, 3 people. I think it was 3 people at the time who knew. And, of course, they just think like, oh, she was important to me. She was a really close friend or something. No, she was my cyber mum. And so that really, really hurt. So, and it came out afterwards, and I think people started to realise why it affected me so much. So when I see Jade on that list, I think, oh my gosh, that's perfect. Because what happens in society is that we often give our children's names. The middle name is often the name of a parent or grandparent or something similar. So the idea of having my middle name as Jade really appealed to me. I thought that was perfect. That I did, and I don't just get to, keep her in my heart. I get to keep her in my purse as well. So I went on onto a Skype group that I'm in, and I said to the people, I said, look, what do you think to doing this? I don't want to steal the name. I don't want to co-opt, the name of a beloved member of the community. But effectively, I wanted to get permission. And it's like, do you think this is the right thing to do? And I had the majority, pretty everybody basically said yes, that sounds great. She would love that, And another person that was more spiritual, she was like, oh, she's looking down and smiling. So that was the blessing, shall we say, that all I needed. And so a couple of weeks later, I changed my name, and that was an amazing day for me, because unlike everybody else, your name is given to you. I mean, other than my surname, which came with the bloodline or whatever, my first name and my middle name are mine. I didn't, they weren't assigned to me when I was born like my old male name was. No, this is something I chose. I'm manifesting my own character. Effectively, I'm controlling the manifestation of myself. I'm taking the inside world and making it the outside world. So that was, that was special. um, and so yeah, that was fantastic. So, and then once I had that changed, and like I say, I go through it in a bit more detail in the video, which is I changed my name elsewhere on my channel about almost a year ago now. And then the following day, I went to the bank and my landlord and the council and the doctors and all that kind of stuff. So that was all fantastic. So so on the 12th of January last year, when I came out to everybody, that was the date that I stopped wearing any guy clothes. I'd been going to visit my mum. Every time I went out, I'd go out like this. But the exception was when I'd go and visit my mum. She only lives a couple of miles away, riding my bike. It's like 15-minute ride, and I'm there. So, and she really didn't want to talk about it. I told her in December, and, Christmas was a little bit frosty. But, and, I had to tell her that I had to change my name. And she was like, okay, thanks for letting me know. So she seemed okay with it. It was kind of weird because, when I first said I told her in 1999 about me, so it's not like she hadn't had any prior warning. And I told her sort of last year that I was going out in public, and I asked her for some makeup advice in September, but I kind of picked up that she wasn't comfortable about that at all. So, but when I would go and visit, try and talk about other things, kind of thing. But it was tense. I was walking on eggshells all the time. It was kind of horrible. I was like scared to mention what I was doing. I didn't want to rub it in her face. That was the thing. I didn't want to just force it on her. I wanted to give her time to sort of get her head around it, and that this is a change that's going to happen, and that and it's horrible to say this, but she doesn't get to choose. I left home when I was 17. That's when I became an independent person. I mean, there are some that say you don't become truly independent until your parents die, because until then, they're always that support network. For some it might be financial, other ones it can be emotional, and I say always, because not all parents are nice, and therefore there are people who, they had a falling out or whatever, they never speak to their parents ever again, kind of thing. So so yeah, I'd started living it 100% of the time from the 12th of January last year, which means I'm over a year into it now. Now, there was a funny... actually, I'm going to prelude it with something. So, being transgender, people look at you weird. People say things. And I'll just give you some examples. So you've got the benign part. So what happens is, when you're walking down the street, people kind of look at you, and you look at them. Your eyes are constantly moving around. And it can be something as simple as someone's walking from the other side, and you sort of look at them and you estimate how quick they're going, so you think, okay, well, I need to change direction a bit so that I don't bump into them or they don't bump into me. So you can speed up or slow down, take a left, take a right, but so that you basically walk past each other. You go to something like a train station, you've got people walking around, or a shopping mall or something like that. You constantly get this going on. And like I say, as you walk, your eyes are looking and checking all over the time, and you're looking, you're looking for all sorts of things. It's, it's a natural part. Excuse me, I've got an itch under my chin. I think my hair is tickling me. So, So what happens is I'm walking down walking, and someone's walking the other way, and they look at me, and their eye just takes that little, little quick look, and what happens is you can see it in their eyes. Their brain basically goes, wait a second, something didn't look right there, and that's when they take a second look to verify what they just saw, and that's when they get the goofy grin or the knowing nod of, that's why she's tall, that kind of thing. So you get that. That's the benign stuff. Then you get some guys, and it's like, look, that kind of thing, and you just have to pretend it's not a thing. Then you end up, you're walking down, and you get a group of people going by, and like a bunch of guys or whatever. It's like, did you see that? Ha 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 ha, and they laugh. Again, it's a part of what happens. This is a part of the social transitioning that I'm having to go through. So, so then there's rather more overt stuff. For example, about a year ago now, I'm walking down the road, and next thing you know, I got someone's walking the other way, and loudly, they go, "There's another she/he," as I go by. And then their little kid, who's about 5 or something, shouts, "You're a man!" Where do you think he got that from? From the parents. And this is what I call, it's a part of the Brexit effect or the Trump effect. It works the same way. Effectively, what you've got is, we thought we didn't have a problem with racism in our societies now, but we do. The difference is that 10 years ago, if you had a friend who said something racist, you'd like, come on, that's out of order, and they would be shamed into silence. But over, since we've had this referendum or Trump got into office or whatever, the people that are racist now think they can verbalise the hate in their heads or in their hearts, whichever way you like. So now they think they can tell these black people to F off back home. And that way that and they can get away with it. They can type this on the internet for everyone to see on Twitter or whatever, in the comments under a newspaper article, all these sorts of things. We see this all the damn time. We see those videos on Twitter or YouTube or something like that where someone is just a bigoted old lady, being racist for someone just because they said, "Excuse me, can I just get in to get some of those pills?" Some headache pills or aspirin or whatever, and she tells them to F off back home. So, and because they got away with it, the homophobes can verbalise it because they think they can get away with it, and then the transphobes do it, and the people who hate Jewish people or whatever, So, all that stuff happens. And in a way, this might end up being a good thing. When I'll give you an example of what I mean. When I look at Trump, one of the reasons why he got in is because people were fed up of career politicians. And maybe Trump being pretty much inept, and the only reason the administration works at all is because most people ignore what he says and just does what they think is best, and hope he does. They just do it quietly, hoping he doesn't notice what's going on. Now, I can't remember where I was going now. Oh yeah, that's right, career politicians, yeah. So maybe America will start to realise, actually, these career politicians aren't so bad after all. Maybe that'll be the case, who knows, time will tell. But, so when it comes to the kind of shit that I get, and bear in mind that I've seen newspaper stuff saying that transgender hate crimes have gone up 80% in the last couple of years. So every time I go out, I wonder to myself, Is today the day that someone decides to attack me? You know, am I going to get one of those, there's another she-he, and I just turn around and go like that, and then they decide, because I'm visually calling them out on it, that they're now going to attack me. And of course then you've got crazy people who've got knives these days. So, you know, it can be kind of scary out there. So, and I describe it as being pecked to death by ducks. On their own, the pecking, if it was another bird with a pointy beak, yeah, that can pierce the skin, but the ducks can't. So it's like being pecked to death by ducks, because although it's not piercing and doing any physical damage on the outside, it's leaving a bruise that doesn't really want to go away. It just sort of sits, in my mind. I'm just wondering, is today the day? So I'm always on my guard. If I want to go to the loo, I go to the ladies, because that's how I'm dressed. Okay, that's how I feel to myself, and and not only that, they're a hell of a lot cleaner, but are certainly less smelly. But when I see those videos from America, and there's even been a couple that happen in the UK, where people who are intolerant against people like me, and they just go off and attack someone for being trans and going into the ladies' bathroom, and then you've got shit all over Twitter where the TERFs, the trans exclusionary radical feminists, who don't want people like me going into the ladies' toilets because apparently I'm a man and I'm a danger to women. This is the kind of bullshit that the religious people, because they're atheists, I'm going to eat babies or something. It's like, no, this is not real. Because I'm an atheist, I've got no moral standard, so therefore I just want to murder and kill people. Well, I've murdered and killed the exact number of people I want to, which is none. I've molested the exact number of women and children in ladies' bathrooms than I've ever wanted to, and that's also none. And standing challenge that I've given out on Twitter here and there is, give me 2 examples when a transgender person has attacked a woman or a child, molested a woman or a child in the ladies' bathroom. And there's been 1 example, and that was about a year ago, and what a piece of shit she is. But other than that, and they just come out, and they show an example of a guy who's wearing a frog, or whatever. It's just ridiculous. And the thing about it is, these arguments are recycled ones from the 80s. They're exactly the same arguments that that lesbians shouldn't be allowed in the ladies' bathroom because they're going to molest women or girls. It's exactly the same argument. It's just been recycled, and it's exactly because we've now got gay marriage laws. They can't discriminate against those people anymore, so they're going after the transgender people now. Part of me, wishes I'd come out many, many years before, 15 years ago, because there was less of that going around, but, it is what it is. It just makes me a bit more worried about, is today going to be the day that someone attacks me? Now, all this constant pecked to death by duck stuff, it would be easy to focus on the bad stuff all the time. That's the reason why, as I was saying about before, how you get the people who end up, taking a bunch of pills. I'm not going to let that happen to me. I'm not going to allow that to get to me. Yes, it does affect me, but I don't let it. I can't control what someone else says or does, but I can control about how I feel about it. And as a result, in my Aspie sense, what I've gone and done is I've created a coping strategy. So let me just take a drink. So here's my coping strategy, and you can tweak it to be any adversity that you face. If you see the news and you see people getting stabbed and people getting shot, and you've got earthquakes and hurricanes and the fires in Australia and things like that, you hear all this bad news going on, But every day, people go home and they kiss their partners, and they, they love each other, and spend time together, and they have friends at work and friends at at home as well. All these sorts of things. Love make the world go round. This goes on every day, and we don't really pay much attention to it. And it's exactly like driving. You remember the two people that cut you up or drove badly, but you don't remember the other 2,000 vehicles that you had, that you encountered going across and around you over that time. No, you just remember the shitty ones. And so that's what I do. So what I've got is this system, and it's like a points-based system. I'm not literally counting points like calories or anything. It's a conceptual thing. So I'm walking down the road. Someone's walking the other way. She looks at me. I smile. She smiles back. There's a point. I go to Boots. It's like they've got cosmetic counters there. So I go to Boots and talk to some of the ladies there because they know me quite well. So I was like, "Oh, your eye makeup's looking nice." Well, there's a couple hundred points because they're experts. Jackie, my friend, lovely, wonderful person. She's like a puppy. You just want to squash and squeeze her because she's so cute and lovely. I post a picture, and she goes, "Oh, Laura, you look stunning today." Well, there's 500 points of gush right there. Another example. I go to my bank, and I noticed they started calling me Laura. They never used to call me my guy name. So it's like, okay, this person is trying to make me feel comfortable. How nice of them. So I said, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Made me feel comfortable. Thank you. And she went, "Oh, you're quite welcome." She said, "You're looking nice today." I said, "Oh, I'm not too bad at makeup and clothes, whatever." And she said, No, you look beautiful. Now, you tell a guy he's handsome. You tell a girl, a woman, she's beautiful. To tell a trans woman she's beautiful, that means a lot. So imagine I've got 8,000 points of positive energy, and I get there's another she/he as I go by. I might lose a couple of hundred points because I feel kind of crappy for a few minutes, but I can take an objective step back and say, yeah, but look, you got 7,800 points of positive energy. The world is better than it is bad. And that's how I get through. And it works for me. It really, really does. And like I say, every time I chat to someone or whatever, and they're nice to me and they treat me like I am, that's more points. That makes me feel good. And that's what I need to focus on. I did have an interesting one happen though. So I went to the council offices, pay my council tax, and I came out and walking down the street, and there's a guy walking towards me, and he suddenly jumps to the side, whoa, and it was rather exaggerated as well. It was strange, and I'm like, "What did you jump for?" And he said, "I didn't. I was on the phone." I said, "You did. You just jumped to the side out of the way." And he went, "No," and it quickly dawned on me that he didn't quite understand because he was a black fella, and English was obviously his second language, and he didn't understand what I meant. It came, in the end I discovered, I figured out that what he thought I was saying, that he was going to jump and attack me, and of course he wasn't going to do that. So once that confusion was over, he said, "Hey, would you like to get a drink?" And I said, "Well, thank you very much, but I've got stuff to do, but thanks anyway." He said, "Really? Because, I'd like to get to know you more." I said, "Why? I'm just transgender, and I've never come across anyone like you before. So, yeah, let's go and get a drink or have something to eat." And then they did, "Actually, come over to my place, I'll make you something to eat." Now, I'm asexual, so I'm not interested in sex or anything, but, let's say I was up for some action, that I was transsexual, because something to bear in mind here. Sexuality and sex, as in, what they write on your birth certificate based upon what they saw between your legs when you were born, they are, your gender is different to your sexuality. It's like the word love. The word love has lots of things that mean, It's the same word is used for lots of things. The way you love a partner, the way you love your parents, the way you love your children, the way you love your friends, the way you love your favourite, sports team, etc., etc., or your favourite music artist. These are all forms of love, but they all mean they're all different. It's all the bloody French's fault. When it comes to English, the reason why we got lots of names for the same kind of things, mountains, hills, dales, things like that. A brook, a stream, a river, an estuary, the sea. Where does one become the next one? Things like that. So we have all these words that mean the same thing. But unfortunately, the French didn't have a different word for love in various contexts. Well, when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to sex, the word sex is used based upon what's on your birth certificate, based upon what the doctor saw when you were born. It also is the act of having sex. And it's another form of how someone classes themselves in terms of their gender. Now, so what happens is this guy, he's so let's say I'm up for some action, and he okay. So you go to so you sort of go down, you're walking down the road to his place or whatever, and he's on the phone. He just ends up talking on the phone, speaking a funny language that you don't know. And then you're at his place and he's making dinner, and next thing you know there's a knock at the door, and that's when his 4 friends turn up. At which point saying no is not really possible. This is how women end up getting raped. I'm not blaming the victim in that sense, but what I mean is, this is a dangerous thing to do, to just go to some strange guy's home on a whim like that. Now, like I say, I'm not so inclined anyway, so I just made excuses. So it's like, So he says, yeah, come over to my place, I'll make you dinner. And I say, and then he leans forward and he says quietly, and maybe you can suck my, and it's like, and I was quite surprised. I mean, I was expecting it to take a lot longer than a couple of weeks, because this was at the end of January. The end of February. So, a month after I've decided, a month after I start living it full time, and I got some guy propositioning me for sex. And so I thought it'd be a bit longer before I had to use the infamous, I'm sorry, I'm not that kind of girl. And I turned and I walked away. And then I looked, and after about 3 steps, I did a shoulder check to make sure he wasn't following me, because then there would be a problem, and it'd probably end up with him singing, speaking soprano with a voice more girl-like than I would like my voice to be like. So yeah, and if anybody listens to this, don't go after, don't get involved with trans women, because they know all the weak spots on a guy. Just saying. Anyway, a little bit of joke there. So, what do I do with my coping strategy? I mean, a part of me was kind of flattered. If I was up for some action, I could get some. So being trans isn't a barrier to, having a sexual encounter if you wanted it. I mean, not that I do, but, it was kind of nice to know that if I was so inclined, because you sort of think, well, I mean, if I was a sexual person in that regard, then it would be easy to think, well, now that I'm trans, who's going to want me? So, so it's like, what am I going to do with a coping strategy? Part of me was flattered. So in the end, I gave myself 50 points of positive energy and 150 negative, because, the guy was a creep. So, there you go. So that was the next bit. So then, the next thing is, I think I got my dates wrong on my thing. I've got a thing in front of me. What I'm doing is I'm keeping a gender diary. So, excuse me for the ambulance going by, or police car. So what I'm doing with this gender diary. So the reason when it comes to going to the gender identity clinic, I'm only going to have 3/4 of an hour, however long it takes. And I may have a lot of things to say, and they're not going to have enough time to listen to me. So as a result, what I've decided to do is I'm keeping a gender diary, and the idea is that anything that goes along on the transition stuff. I don't keep a diary in like how normal sense. It's all to do with transition stuff. So, if you imagine, and the idea is to just keep a date, write a vague thing about it, and because I know someone who used to work for a council, do noise nuisance. And what would happen is, they would basically give you a gender diary. They would give you a noise diary, effectively, where you write down the what the noise is. So when it started, when it finished, the nature of the noise, that kind of thing. Because what happens is they may end up having to go to court with this person who's creating all this noise. And one of the people who can be the witness is the person who is getting, the problems with the noise in the first place. So what can happen is they turn up at court and they get the question, and then they remember something, and then they say, oh yeah, and by the way, this, that, blah, 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 and this is happening. It's very difficult to keep a linear sense of how the time went on, because what they've now done, they're talking about something that happened 8 months ago, and then they suddenly start, oh yeah, and there was this thing, and then now talking about something that happened 10 months ago. So it's very difficult for the judge or the magistrates or whatever to keep a understanding of what's going on. So I thought that if I wrote a gender diary, I could just write it down, give it to them, and they can then put it in my notes or whatever, read it, and so anything that I forget to tell them at the interview, they've got what has happened for the whole thing. So it just made sense to do that. So, and also, not only that, of course, it helps me because it allows me to get a history of my transition. So I don't forget anything that happened. I just have this nice linear thing, and I can see how I moved on through time. So I think it's going to be helpful. So, so the next thing that happened was I told my father about me, and he. He was generally supportive. He wasn't too happy that I'd become a different person due to hormone changes. And the other thing that he just like, well, you're going to be a completely different person. It's like, well, not really. I'm still going to be the same person. It's like, and he's kind of right in some ways. But the main thing that he was upset about, it was more like disappointed because he was the one, and the thing he was disappointed about was my name, because my guy name was Dave. That's a reality, and he picked my name. And the reason why he picked my name was because he used to get teased when he was a kid, and he didn't want the same for me. And David, Pavid, Wavid, it just sounds so lame. So he picked something that couldn't be turned into something you can tease someone about. So that was clever of him, and he's a clever guy generally. So yeah, he was very nice of it, and over time, he's become much better. Now still. Okay, it says it's working again. For some reason, I got a notification from OBS saying it stopped or something. Oh well. So by the way, I know people leaving comments, and I do appreciate it. I'm trying to get stuck on what I'm trying to say, because otherwise I'll end up just talking. I just want to keep it on a thing. Then I'll go back and talk about the comments. So anyway, so let's just have another quick drink. So over time, we speak about every month and a half, that kind of thing, and you know, um, he started calling me Laura, which is fantastic. Like I say, he's been incredible, very supportive. We chat about bits and just normal stuff in our life. But it's nice to have my father call me my name. And like I say, he just doesn't have a problem with it. It's fantastic. I mean, you sometimes worry about the dads in your life because it's like um, you want them to respect you, as an adult, because there's always this thing where you're their child, effectively. Same with your mum as well. You're their child, and you want them to respect you. But for like I say, I had many years living as a guy, so I wanted to make sure. So I want to be respected for who I am, and he's doing that, and I love him to bits for that. So I also called my cousin Mark, who was very supportive, jumped to my new name immediately, so that was fantastic. So, like I say, in February, I had the screening call from the General Identity Clinic. I've already mentioned what happened largely on that. Then it comes down to the end. Came down to my mum. She basically told me she couldn't handle it, and she didn't want me to go down to see her. So it was a birthday in February, or last February, and I, wanted to go and give her a present, and she didn't want me to go down, and she just didn't want me to go. And I said, look, I'm not going to turn up as Laura like that. I'm not going to turn up as a female. I'm prepared to wear guy clothes until you're ready, to help you come to terms with it. And and one of the things that she kind of threw at me was, she said she felt guilty because I told her when I came out and I said, I'm going to transition. I told her when I was 15, I borrowed some of her skirts, and it got noticed, and it was like put them back, and she's, it's like, why'd you do it? And I said, I don't know. And she said, you must know. And I didn't have an answer. I said nothing, and I didn't know. As I said before, I needed to express myself as a girl in the same way as I needed to breathe. It was like an instinct. And I couldn't go to a charity shop or something and buy a dress or whatever. So I just went for what was available. And she just blurted out, well, what do you want to be, a girl or something? And I paused and I said no, because I didn't understand myself. I didn't have the tools. I was 15 and the internet wasn't really a thing then. So I didn't have the tools to diagnose what was going through my head until I left home and, got on the internet when I was 25. So 10 years of confusion I had. So when I came out, that kind of thing, she thought of other stuff. She said, like I say, she couldn't handle it, and she didn't want. She said she didn't want to stop me being Laura, but she struggled to call me Laura. She just didn't want to even say it. And she said that I dumped it on her a week before Christmas. It was actually 10 days. And the reason why I did that, I thought about leaving it until the spring or summer before I came out and said it, because I'd be living it by then. But I thought to myself, no, I'm going to give her one last Christmas with a son before I go full time. And not only that, of course, my mum is a bit of a negative thinker, and I was scared that she would, if I left it until the spring or summer, she'd like, oh, you've been doing this since before Christmas. You made this decision before Christmas. Why didn't you tell me? And it was like, damned if you do, damned if you don't type thing. And one of the other things that happened was when I told them, my mum and dad, mum and dad, that's my mum and my stepdad. When I told them I was going to transition, I pointed out to, in 1999, I was going to America to a little trans, gathering, and I did it a dozen times. And knowing my mum's a bit of a negative thinker, I didn't want something terrible to happen, like plane crash or I'm killed in a car crash while in America or whatever. And so, she would end up having to come to my place, empty my flat out as my next of kin, and she would go in my bedroom and find all the girls' clothes and stuff, and basically go, "Oh my gosh, my son was a pervert," or whatever, because, like I say, I worry that's the kind of direction she goes. And I wanted to save her from that, so I let her know what was going on, and her response was, "Okay, fine, just don't bring it here." And so when I came out and told them, I reminded them of that. "Okay, fine, just don't bring it here." I said, "Well, this time next year, I'm going to be living as Laura all the time. So if you still want to hold me to that, then you'll never see me." And, that got thrown in my face, later on. And it's like, but, it's like, I was laying down an ultimatum. It's like, no, I wasn't laying down an ultimatum at all. I was saying that if you want me to abide by your ultimatum, then you'll never see me, because I'm not going to start pretending to be a guy just so I can go down to my parents' place. I mean, eventually it'll come to the point where my face looks a bit different because I got more, my skin will get softer and I'll get, sort of a slightly different shape because of the hormones, and I'll grow boobs and, get sort of fat on my hips and things like that. I mean, I'll end up physically looking like a female, but turning up at my mum's looking like a guy. And that isn't going to be possible, And when I start living as I live now, I'm not going to be pretending to be a guy. So that was kind of hard, and like I say, I was walking on eggshells around her. And so it was, I mean, she refused to look at pictures. She blamed me for her stress. She's got some stresses going on. And it's, I mean, she said that she's got a high blood pressure because of this. She's had angina for 10 years. Pretty sure that angina has a bit of a high blood pressure problem. So it was like she was just throwing anything she could at me, and that was upsetting. So yeah, that was a tough one. So so then let me find a picture. So a bunch of you are bound to know, that I ride a bicycle. That my my YouTube channel started off with me doing, that's not the one. With a video camera on my cycle helmet, and let me just. So, I didn't want to. What the man up there? So I didn't want to end up having, having a guy bike, and I'm wearing dresses and skirts all the time because I don't want anyone to see boy bumps. Skirts hide that. Ladies' trousers are more fitting, and so I don't want to end up wearing something that shows off the things that I really don't want anyone to see. I don't want anyone to see bulges in places where women don't have them, shall we say. So, and it's exactly the same thing. Trans men, so those are women that become men, they have boobs, and they end up wearing like body binders. They strap everything down so their chest looks flat, because that's one of the causes of the dysphoria. And usually they get it removed, have a mastectomy. So, so yeah, so I'm riding. I got a new, I ended up buying a new bicycle, and it was where is it? So I bought a new bike, and here it is. So it's pink. It's baby pink. This was the first day that I went out on it. Take some pictures. I got it on the Wednesday, and it rained and rained and rained and rained. And on Sunday afternoon, it was a not raining day, or not raining all of the time day. So I went out and I took some pictures. Now, I didn't go out of my way to buy a pink bike. I wanted a lady's bike with a drop-down frame, so instead of having a frame that goes across like that, which is, I don't want to have to lift my leg over my bike, showing off maybe my undies or whatever. It's a bit hard to look dignified lifting your leg over a big frame like that. So I thought, right, I want to buy a lady's bike, a proper, nice bike. Now, like I say, I didn't go out of my way to buy a pink bike. I needed something that was a good size frame, so I needed a 19-inch frame because I'm tall. I needed something with gears because most Amsterdam bikes don't have them, or at least they only have one or two, a couple or three. And that's because Amsterdam's, that's because the Netherlands is flat. And I needed something that didn't cost £400 because that's how much they can cost. Many of them cost. And so I found one at Argos for £180, and it turned out to be pink. And I'm like, do I buy the pink one, or do I, wait until I got £300 and buy one of those? And it's like, yeah, go on then. So I ended up buying it, and it is cute. It really is. And I'll tell you what, the amount of women who, say, oh, your bike's so cute. That's nice. It really is. So, now, on the first time I went out on that bike, the day that photo was taken, I had two instances of transphobia going along. I mean, it was just crazy. So basically I ended up going, I'm going up to the park, and to get to the park it's like up a hill. So I'm going up a hill, approaching the traffic lights, and I see a car go down, and he's going a little bit on the speedy side, to be honest. So saw the car go down, and then as I get to the lights, stop. I'm waiting for the lights to change, and from behind me he beep beep beep, and I look around, and I've got these two guys in the car that had gone down. So he'd basically gone down the road, done a U-turn to come up behind me, and I've got that kind of stuff. What? That's just crazy. But and all because what? Because I rode a pink bike and be trans? I mean, fuck off. And it upset me. And the reason it upset me wasn't because they were being shits, it's because it was my reaction. Because what happened was, I got angry. Because when stuff like that happens, okay, the reason, for a cyclist, I'm a vulnerable road user. Someone bumps into me, I get splattered all over the floor. Okay, I haven't got a metal cage around me and that kind of stuff. So what happens is, when my safety, or my, when I get annoyed, or angry, I mean, how dare they do this to me? How dare they? Bunch of fucking jerks. So what happens is, I get angry, and the testosterone kicks in, because the adrenaline stuff goes, and then the testosterone comes with it. And so what ended up happening was, my mind went into the guy protection mode, and so I ended up giving them the finger, and then just looking away and pretending they didn't exist. Until the engine revs, they beep the horn, and then they, I look and they just give me the finger back. Okay, fair enough. And then they drive down. But it was upsetting because it brought out the guy part of me. That's the part of me I don't want to have. I know that women can lose their shit as well, and but for someone like me, it really did upset me because, yes, I know that women all aren't, cute and nice and all that kind of stuff. They can be just as pissed off as everybody else, as guys can. But it upset me that my mind went into a guy mode, went into a manly, protective mindset. And that's who I'm trying to get away from. So that upset me. And then on the way back home, I get the same thing. I get, a car passes me and they're like looking at me weird. And then, when it comes to the lights, there's a bike zone at the front. I move by. And then these guys change lanes so they can gawk at me. Again, same kind of thing. And, my mind basically turned into guy mode kind of again. And it was like, find yourself on YouTube. I've never published them, but, I was minded to. Because I got it all on video camera, obviously. Well, what happened was, because of the basically traffic offences, I decided to contact the police. And it was quite interesting, actually, because a police officer turned up at my place within 4 hours. People's homes get robbed, and people don't turn up. Even the police don't even bother turning up these days because they're under-resourced or whatever, right? There's austerity government and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so so I ended up with a police officer turn up, and he was very kind. Both incidents were entered as a hate crime. So the statistics for hate crime stuff, that's now on the list for this year. And the officer said he'd have a word. But one thing that was interesting for me was that I felt rather girly, because when the officer turned up, he's 6'6" or something like that. He's taller than me, which made me feel small, which is unusual. I'm normally taller than most men, let alone most women. So having a guy that's taller than me, plus he was like quite a chunky guy. He's like well built, and he's got all the the Batman gear on, the cop gear and stab-proof vest and all that kind of stuff. So, and also he's an authority, whereas I'm the victim. So it kind of made me feel rather vulnerable and rather girly, which, like I say, was an interesting thing. It wasn't a sexual attraction to him in any way, but it was just like, it was like gender-affirming type stuff, So it's like, oh, well, that's an interesting reaction. So, so the next stage that I had, and this was an important one for me, and that was on the 20th of March. And I had a mental switch, or at least I noticed a mental switch, because, so previously I'd compartmentalized myself. I've never had an androgynous phase. I've never had a sort of middle ground thing. I've been one or the other. I've been 100% girly or 100% guy. I don't blend the two. So, because, I would compartmentalize myself into guy mode or girl mode, depending on how I was going to be presenting myself that day. And what I would be doing, if I was going to Manchester, I'd be thinking, while I'm putting my makeup and things like that, I'd be saying to myself, I'm going to Manchester as Laura today. But then I found myself, on this day, on the 20th of March last year, I found myself thinking, I'm going to Manchester today. And I realised that because I'd been living as a woman all the time, I didn't need to compartmentalise myself as a male anymore. I was going to Manchester as a female was the new normal. There was no boy mode in the list of options for consideration. So it was a nice mental switch. It was like, yes, I'm now thinking of myself as female. I'm not thinking of myself as male sometimes. So the next thing, and this was the most horrible part, I think, from everything that's gone on so far. I'm going to take a quick drink. fill up ready. But so on the 30th of March last year, Mother's Day was on the 31st, on the Sunday. So on the Saturday, I phoned up to ask if I could go down and give her a Mother's Day present, because I bought her some chocolates. So having Asperger's, I take people at face value. If someone says they've got haven't got a problem, I think they haven't got a problem, and my mum knows this. So what happened was I wanted to go down and give her a present, and she sort of made excuses. Some of them were valid ones. She had a tumour in her thumb, and she was going to be going to hospital and getting it sorted on the Wednesday. So she's like, and I'm scared to death. And I've had a row with someone at work, and I've had a row with the guy around the corner because the dog pooed on the yard, on the, where the car goes. My mum always picks it up, but and it's like, so these are really lame excuses. So I said, okay, well, how about if I come down as a guy, because she had no expectation I was turning up as a female. So I said, how about if I come down as a guy and I'll just leave it on the mat? And she said, well, that's not, you don't need to do that. And of course my head goes, well, I don't need to, but I want to, because she's my mum. So I said, well, okay, how about if I mail it to you? And she went, well, that's not fair on you, and I don't want to be unfair. And I said, you are being, because and I was going to sort of say, because all I want to do is turn up as a guy, leave it on the mat and go home. Or I turn up, we talk about stuff, and you can just say, I don't want to talk about the transgender stuff. Okay, fine, could talk about other stuff. There's plenty of other tough stuff I can talk about, But but before I could get any of that kind of stuff out, she just goes, you know what, don't bother coming down, just consider me dead. Well, I was absolutely raging. I was so angry. And I chucked on guy clothes for the first time for a month, and I went down to basically have it out with her. Now, I stopped a couple of times, because I thought to myself, well, maybe I should just write a letter or something. It's like, no, she's going into hospital this week. I can't leave this until after. And so, when I went in the door, she said, out, I want you out. I said, no, we're going to have this conversation right now. And I kept my voice calm. I also shooed the dog off the chair and sat down so that I wasn't tall, because my mum's obviously shorter than I am. Most people are. So I didn't want to be tall and pointing and angry and raising my voice or anything like that. So it's like, okay, I'm going to approach this as like the school teacher, being stern and straight to the point. And it's kind of ironic, because effectively my mum was being the child and I was being the grown up in this thing, because like I said, I'd been walking on eggshells, and it was really, really difficult. And I'm getting cross messages. The first time I tell her, she's her reaction is, I couldn't ever accept you as a daughter, but but be safe. And it's like, okay, so. She wants me to be safe, but she's struggling to deal with it. Okay. And then the next time she talks, so in my mental concept of it, if you imagine you've got a long road, and down off to the right, you've got Acceptance Street. So at first, it's like, I'll never accept you as a daughter. So she was never, ever going to make that street. Never going to turn down that road. And then in other conversations, she's like, like, I think I said, eventually I want to come down as Laura. And she said, well, you'd have to phone me in advance, but you do that anyway. So my head is now thinking, okay, It might be a long road, it might be some detours off or whatever, but, eventually she's going to take that turn into Acceptance Street. This is no longer a never going to take that street. She's going to take that street, it's just going to take some time. Okay, that's fine. I can deal with that. I'm patient. So, but then she ends up sort of going backwards, and, as if, like, it's a bit silly. But anyway. So I didn't swear or shout, I was resolute and stern. And I started off by telling her, I said, you don't get to choose that I consider you dead. If you want to consider me dead, that's up to you. But you don't get to tell me how I should think of you. You make decisions for yourself, not for me. And, I reminded her that, she just told me over the phone she was going in hospital and she was scared to death, and I didn't know whether it would be a local anaesthetic or whether it would be a general anaesthetic, so she'd be put to sleep. She could die on the operating table, and the last thing she told me, don't bother coming down, just consider me dead. That was really upsetting for me. And I told her so. And, I told her that she'd said that she couldn't accept me as a daughter because she'd had miscarriages. She said she hadn't. I gave her the quote, I can't have girl children, I can't carry girl children, all my girl children died. I mean, I don't know what to do with that. This confuses me because I don't know whether it's a me problem or a her problem. Now, when I mean it's a me problem, if it's a me being transgendered problem, well, that's just bigotry. She can be educated out of that. If the miscarriage thing, if that's a her problem, if back in the 80s, because my brother's 30 odd, okay, 32, I think, 33. Now, my brother, these miscarriages happened before my brother was born. So, back in the 80s, if she'd have had a nurse or a midwife or a doctor just put a hand on the shoulder and say, don't worry, dear, you can always try for another one. Well, if she hasn't got over the grief of that, and that she's got a mantra in her head that she can't have girl children in her life, that was denied her, then me being trans and me being now a daughter, so to speak, she can't have that. That's not an acceptable thing. Well, that's something she needs therapy to deal with. I can't help her with that. She needs to figure that out. She needs to get some help with that. That can't be my responsibility. If it was just bigotry, I can do something about that. I can explain things to her and, help her understand. That is, although it's not my responsibility, I can take on that responsibility. I can, use some of that. So, excuse me, my eyes are a bit dry. Gosh, struggling. I'm getting sore eyes. It's like, when you're tired, your brain's still awake, but your eyes feel like going to sleep. It's kind of like that. I went out today, so that's probably why I'm so tired. Part of the agoraphobia. Anyway, so when I quoted to her, I can't have girl children, I can't carry girl children, all my girl children died. She turned to my dad and said, "Well, that's what happened, isn't it?" As if that's a defence against refusing to accept me. She said that I'd claimed that I could be the daughter you never had, and I said, "When did I say that? I've never said that." I said that because the most I ever did was, I joked. When I asked her for makeup advice, I said, you could consider it a mother-daughter experience if you like, and I meant it as a joke to kind of lighten the concept of it. And she said, "Oh, I could never consider you as a daughter." I said, "Really? Well, what happened if I decided to transition? What then?" I said, well, I'd have to think about it. I'd have to come. What was it? I'd have to deal with it when that came around. Well, suddenly it's not out of the possibility. So, it gave me hope. This is why I said I was worried about every time I went down, I was walking on eggshells, because, I'm scared of everything I say. So uh, so she said that she accepted the choice I'd made to live female, but couldn't accept the female part of me. I said, well, that's not accepting me at all, because I'm one person. I'm just not hiding who I am anymore. And then I just had to tell her, I just said, look, just because I didn't turn out the way you wanted, it doesn't mean to say you failed as a parent. But if you refuse to accept me for who I am, then you'll have failed as a parent. And she kind of backed up, and she kind of like, the defiant face went on. And she went, well, I failed as a parent then. Now, the funny thing about it is, that defiance, that pushback that she did there, is exactly what I learned as and that's the reason why when she said just consider me dead, I went, you don't get to choose that. That's when I pushed back, and that's why I went down. So she started to say something, and I knew what she was about to say, and I said, stop. Think about what you say before you say it, because once you say those words, you can't take it back. You can't unsay them. And she said, I'm not going to take it back. I want nothing more to do with you. And I started to leave. Just took a step for the door, and I stopped. And my dad was in the room. Now, when I went there, if he wasn't already in the room, because what happens is my mum sits in the dining room, she watches her telly. My dad sits in the living room, he watches his. He likes watching sport and things. My mum watches her programs that she likes. So, let's just get a drink. By the way, everybody, thanks for watching. So, a bit emotional, I suppose, here. So, so I took a step for the door, and I stopped, and I went to my dad, because he was stood next to her by then. He was sat at the kitchen table, and I think maybe when I stood up, he stood up, So I took a step, I went to him, put my hands on his shoulder and said, look, I know I'm only related to you through my mum, but just because she wants nothing more to do, he don't mean to say it's over between us. And my voice was starting to break down, I was starting to cry inwardly. And he's like, I know. And so I went for the door, and I gave a sob, and she said, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry you're upset, but that's just the way it is. And I cut her off, and I turned and I said, no, you don't get to say you're sorry at the same time as you're cutting me out of your life. It's not on, and I'm not having it. And I went out the door, closed the door behind me, and I yelled through the window and said, I'm not going back to living in misery just because you can't deal with it. And I've never been happy with the way things have been since December. And I left and I rode home. Now, I took a long way home because I was upset and my mind was reeling from it. Concentrating on the traffic was going to be a bit more difficult. And I didn't want to put myself in my safety at risk. So I went a longer way, a quieter way. And, I was upset. I wasn't suicidal or anything. But I actually became more resolute than ever that I was doing the right thing for me. And as I walked down the hallway, I took my guy clothes off and I dropped them on the floor in the hallway. And I said, well, I'm not going to need them anymore. And so I spent the next 3 weeks going through my bedroom, and any guy clothes got lobbed out into the hallway. Ended up walking over them for 3 weeks, and just going through all my clothes, putting them, all the girl clothes went on the bed and then went into the cupboards, replacing any guy clothes in there, and then when I had them all sorted out, I basically split them into 2 piles. Anything that was had stains or rips or tears or anything like that went to the bin, and anything that was good and wearable were to go to charity. And I kept 2 sets of guy clothes. I kept 1 set of neat clothes in case my mum changes her mind, and I kept a set of guy kind of scruffy looking things in case I wanted to do any, decorating or messy stuff, But since then, I've got rid of those, the second pair, because, I can do that in a pair of leggings and a slouchy top or something, So I'd still be girly and do the stuff anyway. I could just do it with something that's just not, quite as good. I've got a pair of leggings that have got a bit of a hole in them, so, so I can use them for that kind of thing. Yeah, I've got t-shirts and stuff. So, yeah, that's perfectly fine. But effectively, my mum cutting me out of her life was a catalyst for me to get rid of the guy clothes. And my best day, my absolute best day, was on the 23rd of April, when I went to, I got rid of the first bag of guy clothes. Now, I was going into town as well, and I had an appointment, and I was wearing a really fitted shift dress. Now, let me find it, because it's easier to show than it is to describe. There we go. Okay. So, a fitted shift dress like that, there's no room in them. They're tight and they're snug. You can see it's got a lowish square neckline. My hair's nice, my makeup's good. I'm wearing some 2-inch heels as well. They're kind of like chunky heels, like a D-shaped heel. So not wobbly or anything. And of course, this is a bit of a problem because I'm 6'4", and when I put 2-inch heels on, well, the thing about doors, as you can see behind me, they're 6'6". So when I've got heels on, at the top of my step, I can scrape the ceiling, the top of the door frame. So I have to kind of duck a little bit, but they look cute and they make you walk different as well. You have to kind of walk one foot in front of the other. So wearing a dress like that, you can't make big strides. And although physically they're not comfortable, mentally they are, because it makes me feel much more feminine. It brings out the girly part in me. And so what happened was so I wore that, and when I was finished with the appointment, and I dropped off the first bag of guy clothes, so I'm feeling really positive and feeling really empowered by this. Because it's not about the clothes, it's about how I feel in them. That's the best way to describe it. So the clothes are the outward manifestation of the woman on the inside, basically, is the way to describe it. So I've just got rid of the first bag of guy clothes, done my appointment. I'm on the indoor market, and there's a makeup place on one side, and on the opposite side there's a haberdashery place. And I was going to there because I need to buy some, can't remember what it was now. Might have been some cotton, because I do a bit of sewing here and there, you see. And I'm good at it as well. Anyway, so I'm walking through the indoor market. My head is held up high, my shoes clip-clopping away as I've put one foot in front of the other, very ladylike manner. And secretly, and I've got some these like tummy slimming undies you can get. They're really, really tight. They're good for tucking away all the boy bumps, So I'm walking through, and I'm feeling really powerful about myself, really, feeling really good about myself, and in my head I'm thinking to myself, I hope I'm tucked tight and no one can tell. I'm sure I am, but you know what? I don't even care if someone can tell. I'm being me. This feels wonderful. This feels so right. This is who I am, this is who I want to be, and no one can tell me I can't live like this. No one can tell me that I can't feel like this. And after I finished the haberdashery place that I wanted to, I decided, you know what, I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to buy myself some fresh flowers. And so I did. I bought myself some fresh flowers, and I do this for myself every month. I mean, these are the ones. These are the ones I got for me, bought yesterday for myself. And ladies, if you ever get fresh flowers, get multicoloured ones. And what I do is I just turn the vase every day. So I get a different colour every day. So I get to think, oh, I got fresh flowers, and I got a different colour. So, yeah, that's what I do. So, yeah. So, so a couple of days later, on the 23rd, that was the Thursday, if I remember correctly, I got rid of 5 bags of guy clothes. And where is it? There you go. So I got rid of 5 bags of guy clothes. And it really made me feel good. That again, I was moving away from the guy past, moving forward to the female future. I've got no regrets about it now. I had a few inward thoughts about, is this the right thing for me? And by the time I got to December, it's like, yes, this is 95%. Now it's that narrowed down, and now there's no doubts in my mind. It's always a good idea to have doubts, but for this, I've got no doubts anymore. This is who I am. This is where I'm going. I know now, and I'm not going back. I'm not going back to living like that. And not only is it not going back to living like that, it'd be bloody expensive to go like that. I have no excuse to go back. I basically burned that bridge, so to speak. So it took 5 trips because my basket on the bike can only get 1 big bag in there. So I ended up having to make 5 trips backwards and forwards. That was like out and back, 10 trips backwards and forwards ultimately. And while I'm riding, the tune in my head was "Search for the Hero" by M People. Search for the hero inside yourself. Search for the secret you hide. And then you find the key to your life. It's like, yeah, I was just feeling so powerful about myself. And when I got home, I posted a picture on Twitter, and my friend who helped me change my name legally, she said I looked radiant, which is a lovely thing to say. So, and that's one of my favourite outfits. It's a coffee-coloured skirt. It's like an A-line skirt below the knee. It's a sleeveless sort of vest top, buttons at the back, and an emerald green cardigan. It doesn't come out as quite as green as it does in real life, but it's a great outfit. It's really, really comfortable. But like I say, I was told I look radiant, so what a lovely compliment. And so, yeah, that was a wonderful thing. And I celebrated by nipping myself out, and I got a kebab and a bottle of wine to treat myself. It's like rewarding myself for, or rewarding stroke celebrating. I'm being me. All the guy stuff now going in the past, kind of stuff. So okay, I gotta find something. Let me just find a so I got a little bit of something that will make you giggle now, I think. Okay. Oops. Okay, I'll have that ready for a moment. In a moment. So, so I had an amusing thing sort of happen in in May. So what happens is, I get my groceries delivered. So you just order them online, and they turn up the next day. It costs you a couple of quid. And well, my carrots were delivered. Sorry, try again. My order was delivered, but when I went through it and the guy had already gone, I noticed there weren't any carrots in with my order. So I checked to make sure I'd ordered them. It's like, yep, there they are. So I phoned up, Asda, which is the company I buy them from, and so I ended up talking to some. They'd outsourced, so I was talking to someone in India or Malaysia or Philippines or wherever it is they operate from. So she said, she asked for my order number, so I gave her the order number. She asked for the name. I said, Laura. She said, "Okay, sir, how can I help you?" And I kind of, that kind of jarred me, triggers a bit of dysphoria in me. I said, "I'm sorry, did you hear me say my name is Laura?" And she said, "Are you sure that's your name? Because Laura's a girl's name, and you sound like a man." Now, I don't like having to apologise for confusing people over the phone for having a, male voice. I mean, I've softened it up as best I can, but, it is what it is. Part of me thinks that voice coaching should become as soon as transgender changes their name. I think that would avoid such incidents. But I've decided what I'm going to do with that, because again, I like to kind of, I don't know, it's kind of one of those things where I want to kind of, give them a middle finger. So I've got a thing that I'm going to do now, and it comes down to this. So this is the Monty Python Dead Parrot sketch, and it's only the start of it you need to watch. So watch Michael Palin, he kind of ducks behind smoking a cigarette.
Hello, I wish to register a complaint. Hello, miss? What do you mean, miss? Oh, I'm sorry, I have a cold.
Now, that's it. You might think, well, what's that got to do with anything? What I've decided I'm going to do, if someone misgenders me, I'm just going to ask, "Oh, I'm sorry, have you got a cold?" Because if you saw from that sketch, it's like, he calls Michael Palin miss, and suddenly he sort of jumps up and says, "What do you mean, miss?" And then he's just like, "Oh, I have a cold." That's a really rubbish excuse, but, So it's like, yeah, I'm just going to give a middle finger by confusing them a little bit. It'll be my way of saying, yeah, screw you. So I gotta find where's my. Where's my? Oh, there it is. So, like I say, it's cheesy, but it's my way of kind of getting back at them. Oh, must be me swapping screens, right? Huh, that's interesting. Oh, of course. I haven't turned this back off. There you go. There's me again. As you can see, I keep a list of all these things. So, yeah, but I shouldn't have to apologise for having a male-sounding voice, and for her to say, are you sure that's your name? Because Laura's a girl's name, and you sound like a man. I basically said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm transgender. Is that a problem for you?" At which point she became professional again. So, so then, Steph, who's the dietitian, we chat, for a little while. She's someone I can speak to about stuff. And, I gave her a thank you card. And she was really touched by it. She just said, she said, "Oh, give me, and she gave me a kiss on the cheek and a hug. She was really, quite taken by that. And, she explained, a couple of times, she couldn't even remember me as a guy anymore. And heaped praise on how, stunning I looked or whatever. And she said I got a great sense of style, I got great legs and I should show them off more. So, yeah, that was kind of cool. A few days later, I got a letter off the doctors because as it wanted me to sign for a new NHS number. Now, for some strange, crazy reason, you can't. So, when I would go to the doctors, there's a little computer screen, and rather than have to go to reception, and have them worry about things, all you do is you go to the screen and you type it. You just like press to start, and then you do your date of birth, and then your gender, and then and then it shows you your appointment. Go and sit down. Well, having to press the mail button kind of, again, it kind of hit me with a bit of dysphoria. So I discovered, and they can't just go into the computer system and change an M to an F. It doesn't work like that for some weird reason. And so what they've got to do is they've got to, the only way around it is to get a new NHS number. So, as a result, sorting this out, I'm now an F. I'm now female on the NHS records, which of course ended up with me getting a rite of passage letter, which has invited me to go down for to arrange an appointment for a cervical smear. So, to check whether I've got cervical cancer or not. Well, of course, I don't have a cervical cervix to get a cancer on, so obviously I don't need to respond to that. But like I say, it's kind of nice to get the sort of the female things, that these are the things women get invited to, breast exams, breast scan, cervical smear stuff, So these are things that women get letters for. And if you ladies, if you're watching this and you get those letters, go to those things. Having a little bit of discomfort and a sort of an afternoon or evening off work, afternoon or morning off work or whatever. Well, that's one of the things that you just have to accept. But it's better to have that than end up, having an issue that you end up having to take a lot more time off because you're really sick, because you end up getting cancer or something. I mean, better to be sure and know and get it early. Excuse me, my voice is starting to get a bit raspy. So, so yeah, it's kind of nice being female on the list. Of course, there's another thing that I got to worry about. And that is that I will not get the letters that would be pointed out for males, and I'm getting to the point where that my doctor would be would be worried about prostate. So I wouldn't get the letters saying make sure you go for a prostate exam. But like I say, when I start taking hormones, that will shrink and it'll become less of a problem. But breast cancer could become an issue, but whatever, it's a part of the job. It comes with the boobs, I suppose. The possibility. I don't mind that. I'm fine. So then I had another one, so I went into Manchester because I do occasionally get to go to Manchester because sometimes, even though I've got agoraphobia, some days I have good days and I get to be able to do things. So I went into Manchester and I went to Boots and I ended up in a conversation between my friend Amanda, who works on the L'Oreal counter, and next to it is the Elizabeth Arden counter, and one of the ladies, she was more of a temp at the time. So she was working there and ended up with a three-way conversation. And it was a really good, interesting conversation as well. And we were talking about boobs. One of them is quite well built, quite well endowed. The other one is more flat-chested. And she was talking about having a boob job or whatever. But it kind of came along because I kind of asked this question. I said, I'm wondering what's going to happen. I wondered what would happen. So I said, okay, look, here's the thing. So I've got waiting, I could be waiting a couple of years for in order to get hormones. Then it's going to take a year for them to grow. By the time I get hormones and I've got a year of growing, I'm going to be close to 50. I'm 46 now. It was my birthday a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to be 50. I said, when women are 50, they kind of, they get, the boobs can get a bit saggy and, because it's just an age thing. I says, well, what's going to happen for me? Am I going to end up having, old ladies' boobs because I'm an old lady? Or am I going to end up getting young ones because they're fresh, they're new? And, effectively they said, you're going to end up with fresh ones because, what makes, when women's breasts sag, it's because of gravity. Effectively, years of gravity and the weight of them, and basically it stretches the skin and they kind of go saggy. That's just a reality of life. And so, but for you, they'll be absolutely fresh. They'll be new. So basically, what's going to end up happening is you're going to be 50 and you'll have the boobs of a 20-year-old. We're all going to hate you. And it was kind of, it was a joke. It was a bit, we had a bit of a chuckle about that, But I said afterwards, I said, thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, think about it this way. If I was still living as a guy, do you think we would have had that conversation? And she went, no, probably not. And like I say, it was special for me because I was in the girls' club here. We were having a girls' discussion about girl stuff. So it was nice to be included in that. And one of the things that I'm trying to do, I'm trying to increase my number of girlfriends, because guys tend to have guy friends, girls have girlfriends. And I don't. And the reason I want to have more girlfriends is because I want to learn what it's like to be a woman. I know that sounds obscure, but think about it. Excuse me. I had 44 years of living as a guy all the time. Okay, I may have worn clothes or whatever, felt like I felt, but, I lived as a guy, so my experiences was mostly guy from a guy's point of view. So I don't want to be a caricature of what a guy thinks a woman's like. I want to be like a woman. So in order to be able to pick up, the characteristics that, because I want to fit in. I don't want to look like the odd one out. So in order to not look like the odd one out, I need to acquire as many feminine attributes, characteristics, how I say things, how I move my hands more, things of that nature. So, I want to fit in. And the best way to fit in is to hang around with people and observe how they behave and how they act and how they say things and what they talk about. And so that will help me be the best woman I can be. I know that's... Honestly, it sounds weird, almost premeditated, like, women are an experiment for me to examine. And I suppose in a way it sort of is. I mean, the Great Debate stuff, the Great Debate community that I've joined years and years ago now, about 8 years ago, I've been around, 7 at least. All that stuff, it's like, the reason why I got involved was because I didn't believe in God. And you got these people that really believe in God. How do they find their, how do they get there? Why do they believe what they believe? And, so it became a sort of an examination and, then I found some friends and stuff. But, like I say, I want to be able to pick up why people feel like this or have this opinion or whatever, because this is how people work. This is, this is sociology, really, isn't it? So, in those terms, I don't want to be, I don't want people sort of meek. I don't want to come across as a, like a masculine female, if that makes sense. I want to be the best I can. I mean, yes, I'm limited that, I was born a certain way and I had a life that like that. And, some hobbies that are, tend to be more on the masculine side, in model trains and stuff like that. But, I've got a couple of friends who are like that, so, So, yeah, that was, that was a nice day. Um, so um, uh, then on the 1st of June, I went to a model railway show. Now, I'd already been to one show, it was just a little local show. But this one was a big show for me because it's the biggest show of the year, in my opinion. And not only is it the biggest show of the year for me, it's mainly the biggest show for me because I'm actually the vice chair of the Model Railway Society whose show it is. I did it as a guy, and when I came out to everybody, I posted it on the forum for the society, and everybody, and even for the little club magazine that we have, the society magazine that comes out 4 times a year, I wrote a little thing for there saying, look, I'm transgendered, and I've been met with universal acceptance and approval, with the exception of my mum, of course. And it's been fantastic. So I went there as Laura for the first time, and people treated me with respect, and kindness. They didn't make a fuss out of it or anything. And one of my friends, sort of really was pleased for me, and sat down. We chatted for about, for a little while, things like that. So it was great. It really, really was. But I mean, the first model railway show I went to, the Macclesfield show, that, obviously, I'm somewhat known in the model railway circles, in the diesel electric stuff. So as a result, I bumped into a couple of people I knew there. One person who used to manage the Wigan show. Someone in a model railway group that works. We'd had discussions about stuff they're working on. They're working on a Glasgow Queen Street layout, and so at first you have a sort of like they don't know what to say. They don't know how to react. They don't want to react negatively, but so it's like there's like almost like a buffering. How do I react with this person now? They've changed, but how have they changed? What are the rules now for this relationship? And of course, at first, I just made it simple. It's like, how are you doing? I said, I'm doing really good. This is really working for me. And then I jumped straight into the model stuff, because now we're talking a language we both know. It eases the problem for them, and it's it saves it all being about me, which kind of makes me feel a little bit self-conscious. So what it came down to was me saying, you know what, let's talk about trains. And as soon as we start talking about trains, it's like, me being me doesn't make a difference. We're in the same mindset of talking about the trains and how things are being achieved. So that was fantastic. So then what happens is I go into Manchester another day. This is in June, and I walked past Victoria's Secret, and I saw they had a bra fitting service, and I thought, yeah, because I kind of struggle to find ones that are comfortable, and so I went in, and and I had a young lady who was incredibly nice, listened to some of the stories that I've mentioned to you, and sort of we found out what works for me, and by the way, it turns out I'm a 36C, so that that with the breast forms that I've got anyway, so that's all been nice and everything. So Victoria's Secret bras, they're a little bit on the pricey side. They're like 35 quid, and I mean, I've been told that women wear bras until they're literally falling apart. It's a bit like guys do the same thing with boxer shorts or undies or whatever. They might have holes in them. The elastic might be coming apart, from the main fabric or whatever. But when they fall apart, that's when you go and buy new ones. Women aren't much different. A good bra costs a fair amount of money, and you just wear it and wear it and wear it until it wears out. Anyway, so They were a bit pricey, couldn't really afford one at the time. I still haven't got around to doing it yet. I will do eventually, hopefully. But a week later, I went into Manchester, went to Primark to, I bought a pack of 3. And I had a really bad gender dysphoria thing. Now, gender dysphoria is a thing for me. And the best way I can describe gender dysphoria is if you can imagine someone who's anorexic. They look in the mirror and they see a fat person. Whether they're a fat person or not, that's what they see. In their head, they're thinking, oh my gosh, that I look fat. Okay? Now, for me, I get a similar kind of thing. It's not the same, obviously, but it's similar. So what'll happen is, I'll get up in the morning, I've got no makeup on, but I'm wearing this time of year, I'm wearing a long nightgown, flannel nightgown, very comfortable. So I'll get up in the morning, I'll go to the loo. I'll use the loo, and then I'll go to wash my hands, and there's the mirror, and, that's when the dysphoria hits me. Because what I see is a guy's head with a girl's body, because, it looks like a girl, girl's body with a a feminine nightgown. So, I see myself in the mirror and it's like, ugh, and it's gender dysphoria. Now, and the weird thing about it is, when I was living as a guy, I didn't get the dysphoria as bad as I get it now. And the reason is because before, it was one of those things that I just sort of ignored because it was outside of, my reach. It was out of my reach to live, as a woman. To transition was outside my reach. So as a result, I just sort of ignored it. Because it was always because what will my mum think, what will the neighbours think, what will friends and colleagues and strangers on the street think, my audience think, all those sorts of things. So, I just sort of put it out of my mind. But now, I'm on the transition. When I get up in the morning and I see myself in the mirror, it's another one of those days where I've not got hormones and I'm still looking at myself and thinking, fucking hell, I look like a fucking guy. And it just, it's a sort of combination of, anger in a way as a result of what I see. Because what's happening is the mirror is not telling me what I think, how I think of myself. The mirror is lying to me, effectively. Because I know in my head who I am, but when I look in the mirror tells me, no, that's not who you are. Because that's a guy's head, and that's not who you are. And so, but what happens is, I have a shower or whatever, I have a shave, and then I'm going to be doing something that day. So, today I went out, and the reason why I'm doing this now, I really should have probably gone to bed because my eyes are feeling a bit heavy. But there's a reason why I keep looking down. When I get home, sorry, what am I talking about? Try again. When I come in here and I put my makeup on and I put the clothes on, the last thing I do is go into the bathroom because I've got a good light there and it's easy to see. When I go in the bathroom, that's when I put the wig on and brush it all out and everything, and then I look at the mirror and I see myself and I say, okay, now the mirror's telling me the truth. Before, at least something reasonably like the truth. I look at myself and I see who I want to be looking back at me. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So yeah, that was the dysphoria. So what happens is, I go to Primark to buy a pack of 3 bras. Something that's close to a 36C. They'll do me until I can afford a more expensive one, a more comfortable one. Because these ones, they fit, but, they're a little bit snug under the arms and, but anyway. So, my eyes are getting sore again. I've got mascara on as well, I don't want to rub. So what happened was, bought these 3 bras, and then I said, I sort of asked someone, said, is it okay to use the changing room to put one on? And she's like, yeah, yeah, fine, no problem. So I go into the changing room, and the door's there to the side, and then there's a 45-degree angle from me. There's a mirror, and so I unzip the back of my dress, drop the bodice down to my waist, take my one bra off, put on the new one, and I got sight of my big, fat, ugly, hairy male belly. I don't always shave down there. For those people who've never shaved their tummy, when it starts growing back, it gets really, really itchy, especially on the belt line area. It really, really does. It's not like on your face where it starts growing. It's like prickly. It's almost like when you get stung by stinging nettles, and you just got that sort of itch that just sits with you all day or for hours afterwards. It's kind of like that. It's this prickly sensation. It's not at all comfortable. So, and I just felt so repulsed. I had to look away because I felt like vomiting, honestly. I had to look away in disgust. I try not to look at myself naked anyway, but seeing a 45-degree profile that made it look so fat, and my tummy looked so fat, and the fact that it's hairy, sometimes. I mean, I do shave more now to avoid that problem, but my chest hair grows as quick as my face hair. So you can imagine 3 days, and suddenly it's like stubbly. It's like no, it has to be shaved. But shaving the belly, no one gets to see that, so it's not like something I had to worry about. And it's the fact it's hairy is probably what made it look so male in the first place. I shave it from time to time, but I hadn't done it for a while. If I ever get diagnosed with gender dysphoria, hopefully I'll be able to get it lasered away, along with the face and the chest and the arms and legs. The rest of the day went fine. I mean, as soon as I was, covered back up, and I was fine. But it was a real shock to the system. So that was quite a big one. So then, next one comes, the 24th of December. It was a lovely day, first really good day of the year, and I had a wonderful adventure. I basically, I really had, when you get a craving for certain foods, I really had a craving for scrambled egg on toast. Don't know why, just did. Well, I didn't have any bread. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go out there. Well, obviously I've got to put the makeup on and all that kind of stuff. So I decided that I would, let's just move this. Okay. So, in my head, I kind of feel like I they look a bit too male and muscly or whatever. I'm not really a muscly person, but they kind of look a bit like that. So but this was the first time I'd worn a sleeveless dress out, and it's pretty short as well. So I put on this nice summer dress, and it turned out to be a really nice walk in the hazy sun. So I went to the supermarket, and there was a homeless person outside. So while I was in picking up my bread and whatever it was, I think I picked up something else. I picked up some chocolate bars, and a pack of 4 chocolate bars, and a bottle of water, some flavoured water. I think it was a cherry flavour or something. And so when I went out, I gave it to the homeless guy, and then I walked down the canal, and because I had some, there were some geese there, so because I had it, I thought, okay, I will give them a couple of slices. So I break up, give it to the geese, and then walking down the canal, and then sort of I see some more geese, and I feed a couple, another slice or two, and then I walk down. There's some more geese, and then I go. There's a bridge that goes over the canal to get to on the park to go on the way home. So I go like a long way around, and I look back, and I'm being stalked by about 50 geese. They're basically swimming down, following me. It's like, what? Would they smell the bread in my bag? So I'm being followed by these geese, and then so I walk through so I just feed a bit more to them, another 3 or 4 slices, and then so I walked home through the park, and there was some lads playing football. There's like an enclosed section with like railings around it, like netting. Like a steel mesh, Anyway, so some guys were playing football, 5-a-side football, in this area, and I'm just leaving the park, and suddenly the ball that they're playing comes landing near, just beyond my feet, and I'm thinking, okay, they're testing me here, but it'd be rude not to give it to them back, so I basically picked it up, threw it over for them and there wasn't a word between us, but so then I continued on the way back home, and then there was a cat, and I sort of gave it a stroke, and then sort of, right, I gotta go now, and then it started following me, and until it got to a point where it realised I wasn't going to stop now, so and then I got home from a rather enjoyable walk, and had some sore feet, but I made my scrambled egg and toast, and had some squash with plenty of ice. Really feeling nice. It was a nice day, that, and I've on my little gender diary, it just says, I'm really feeling good right now. I like who I am, and that was nice. So then, let's have a look. Not there. Because why was he? Who's further up? No, that's much before. No, I don't know where I put it. No matter. Let me just change that for a second. I think I know where it is. I'll grab that picture as well. Sorry about this, I'm just finding the picture for you. Come on, oh, come on, I know it's around here somewhere. Ah, there it is. Okay, go back. Okay, let's drop it down the bottom here. Sorry about this, everybody. Okay. So I was involved in a bicycle demonstration. So effectively, Great Ancoats Street. They There's a cycle lane, and they wanted to remove the cycle lane and put in an extra car lane. And somehow that's going to make it better for the people who live in that area, to have more cars and more fumes and more traffic. That's going to be better for the people who live in that area. So yeah, but anyway, so there was a cycling demonstration about it, and when one of the guys, so we basically started off in one place, we rode a bit through the city, and then ended up in like a square near the road we were protesting about. And it was even on the local news. I was on video on the evening news, sort of waved at the camera. You can find out my YouTube channel. And it was when I was listening to one of the guys, he said the council leader, Christopher Lee's, was it Richard Lee? Sorry. He said that cyclists didn't have a right to protest because we were getting like some new cycle lanes around, and it's like, yeah, we're going to end up going around the houses to get to the place, we want to go to, and it's like, it's like, poof. No, I had something to say, so I spoke to the guy who was organising. I said, "Do you mind if I say something?" So I ended up, you can see here. So I ended up standing on a big stone block as myself in front of about 150 cyclists. And I explained that, that we do have a right to protest. That I said, a lot of people think road tax covers the cost of, pays for the roads. This isn't true. That the highways agency, road tax, vehicle excise duty, brings in £5 billion a year to the exchequer, to the treasury. The highways agency, which is for the motorway network, that's just the motorway network the cyclists can't use. The budget for that is £6.5 billion. So even if every single penny of road tax went to the roads, it wouldn't even cover the cost of the motorway network. What pays for road repairs on the local level, which is where cyclists ride, is council tax, and cyclists and pedestrians pay council tax. But unlike all the masses of cars and lorries and buses and trams and trucks and vans, cyclists don't weigh very much, so they do no damage to the road by comparison. They're not ripping up the tarmac all the time, because a road lasts for about 20 years before it needs to be resurfaced. A cycle lane for a bicycle could last 50 to 100 years because cyclists don't weigh as much. Even if we have 50 times more traffic using them, they still don't damage the road in the same way. They don't, you haven't got cars ripping it up, the weight of buses pushing down, stopping, dragging a bit of gravel here and there, things like that. And it sort of reminded me of, and I made people laugh. I said, there was something in the local news where someone was complaining because of roadworks that it took them 40 minutes to drive 2 miles to get to work. I was like, why the hell is he driving? He could ride a bike and get there in 20 minutes. It just... And then there was a lady on Twitter who was saying that, the traffic, it takes her... it takes her 20 minutes to drive half a mile to get to the gym, where she presumably rode a bicycle that didn't go anywhere for half an hour. She could have just ridden a bike to the gym, or even walked. It's half a mile. Why is someone driving that far? So, and because I've said this, and it's basically, if you build it, they will come, and if they build a cycle lane, the cyclists will come. And I got a round of applause for that. So I was really quite pleased with myself, quite proud of myself, because I'm giving a speech in front of a bunch of people, and I'm only 5 months in. So, like I say, I was really pleased about that. That was great. So, I was quite satisfied with myself for that. So, okay, so, yeah. I would have struggled doing, standing on a podium and speaking to a bunch of people as a guy a year ago, and yet now doing it as me, it seems to be a lot easier. It's weird how that is, so like I say, it's just an interesting thing. So so I went to Manchester. So a few days later, I went to Manchester for Critical Mass Ride. Now, if you've never heard of it before, Critical Mass is something that happens in many cities all over the world. There's one in London, one in Manchester. Started off in San Francisco about 20 odd years ago, and it's basically where a bunch of cyclists ride around the city, and we just ride around, give people high five, wave, smile, have a bit of fun. We ride slowly around town. And it's basically a sort of part demonstration, part social. You're basically saying we're road users too. So I went down there, and there was still hours yet before then. So I went to Boots, and then I finished there. I was heading up pedestrian street, and there was a street preacher. And when he caught sight of me, he goes, "And many want to be women." Oh, you're throwing down a gauntlet here. Okay, I've read the Bible, more about it than you do. Let's go. And so I ended up having a debate with him. And, and I was, I debated him fiercely without swearing or anything, and, all my best atheist arguments came out, justifying my position against his. Ended up with about 30 to 40 people around us. At first it was just him shouting out with a megaphone. He's got like a headset with, and a speaker thing at his feet. He's got a buddy with him. And when, people are just walking by, well, now they've got something to watch. So, we're going backwards and forwards. So, I decided to pull out some of the really, big ones. So it's like, I asked him whether slavery was wrong. He said slavery's wrong. I said, well, that's not what your Bible said. Your Bible gives rules for slavery. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. Exodus 21. You got a Bible? Read it there. Read it out for us, So he said, okay, he said. So he's flicking the pages, and he gets to the Exodus 21. He skims the page. And he said, I'm not reading all that. I said, what do you mean? It's not even a whole page. Don't worry, I said to the people around us. I've got that bit memorised. And so I started reading it out. If a man if a man goes in alone, he leaves alone. If he goes in with a wife, his wife leaves with him. But if he goes in alone and his master buys him a wife, then on the 7th year he gets to go free, but she doesn't. But he can go with his master to the door or the doorpost of the temple, and he says, "I love my master, I love my wife, and I do not want to go free." And they stick basically a big pin, tool, through his ear, like to tag him, like an ear, piercing, and he becomes his master's property forever, and he can hand it down to his kids and stuff like that. That's how you get your fellow Hebrews, get them young, give them a wife, and you can keep them forever. A loophole, So. I also did the is lying and stealing wrong thing, and I gave examples of why lying and stealing in certain cases are the correct and moral thing to do. And my first example is, yes, Mr. Nazi, no, Mr. Nazi, there aren't any Jews in my attic. Now, there are Jews in my attic. I know exactly what's going to happen to him if they get caught, And so by lying, I'm saving their lives. I'm literally saving lives by lying. How is that possibly the wrong thing to do? And again, of course, people like this, they think of it in two-dimensional terms. So it's a black and white situation. Lying is always wrong in every circumstance, in every way, which I think is bogus. And then the other one is stealing. I've got a friend who's having a psychotic episode, and they're talking about doing a mall shooting. Well, if I steal their gun and leave, run away with it or whatever, they can't kill anybody. So not only am I saving the people he might kill, but I'm also saving his life, because usually in these cases the police shoot them dead or they kill themselves. So, by stealing, I'm literally saving lives, including my friend's life. And his answer was, it's still wrong. At one point he said I was guilty of a sexual sin. I said, I'm an asexual. I'm still a virgin. I've never had sex, not interested in it either. How can I possibly be committing a sexual sin when I'm literally not having sex? And he raised his Bible and said, we're all sinners to God. And I said to the people around the crowd, I said, did you notice how he completely avoided my question? And the crowd laughed at this avoidance. So, and during the discussion, because, other people were talking as well, a girl next to me, she said, this is hate speech, because we were talking about hell and stuff. She said, this is hate speech. I should phone the police because it's illegal. I said, no, don't. Think about what's going on right now. 30 minutes ago, he was yelling in the street with no one paying any attention to him, thinking his beliefs and, him and his beliefs were harmless. Now everyone can see that he's a horrible, hateful person, that his, form of belief, and the God that he believes in is utterly hateful in reality when contrasted with what he was sugarcoating before, which was the love of Jesus type stuff. Now he's showing the hate bait kind of stuff. And everyone here can see it. He's doing the exact opposite of what he was intending to do. He's not drawing two people towards his belief system. He's repelling everyone from it. And after I was after I said that, I had to go because it was getting close to the ride. And a young lady pushed her way through the crowd, and she said to me, "You were amazing. Can I give you a hug?" And we hugged. It was a really lovely moment. It was another excellent step in my transition, because I'm comfortable with who I am now. Before, I even managed to shout out to the crowd in the slightly softer, more feminine voice compared to the harder voice I had before, and I enjoyed the critical mass ride as well. But I am comfortable with who I am now. It's not something I need to be ashamed of. I'd see these street preachers before and wouldn't engage where I would have done before. But now I can do it. I'm okay with that. And that was great. It really, really was. So let's have a look what else. Oh yeah. So I had my friend Kat come to visit. And we went to Doncaster to look at some train stuff there. And there was this weird train spottery guy who was really creepy with me. He kept staring at me as he went by, just that sort of like, and you just, he went onto a different platform, and I turn around and he's staring at me again. It's like, it's just a guy getting on my nerves, And after 25 minutes of it, when he came near me, staring at me, I just took a step forward and said, What do you want to know? You keep staring at me. You obviously want to know something. Speak it up or stop staring at me. And he stopped staring and immediately took his photo and then walked off, and I never saw him again. But it was just annoying, this, and it was just this weird staring, it's like, get over it. So, so then my friend Alice came to visit. Now, Alice is the one that if you've already seen my coming out story, Alice is a friend from these cross-dressing transgender gatherings I used to go to, and she's trans as well. Although the Dutch system is a little bit slow as well, and there's a bit more loopholes. So I have more hoops to go through there. Changing name isn't quite as easy. Anyway, so there was Sparkle. A Sparkle is a transgender gathering that goes on every year, and so she was coming to go to that. Now, the previous year, when she came over, and this was the time when she sort of said, "Why do you care what these people think?" And that's what got me going out on the balcony, because I was going out on the balcony in a nice summer dress and sticking the guy t-shirt over, so none of the neighbours would suspect that I was wearing a dress. Just because I'm paranoid what the neighbours would think type stuff. Excuse me. So what happened was, so she came over for Sparkle, and I was going to go as well. But what happened was she told me some of the ex-friends that I just disagreed with and decided I didn't want to go back to those gatherings anymore. They were going as well, and I was told that I shouldn't go because if I went, a couple of them wouldn't. And it's, and it really had me. I went into a spiral of depression a bit that night. I was really upset in my head about it. And I was in a bad mood on the Friday. We were supposed to be going into town. I didn't even get very far because someone shouted something out, and it just made me feel really bad. And so I knew that I was going to be in a bad mood, and I was just waiting for someone to say the wrong thing. So it's like, no. So we just came back and watched TV or whatever. But, so when it came on the Saturday, when it was, Alice was going to go to Sparkle and meet some of the people, because bear in mind, just because they and I have fallen out, it doesn't mean to say that Alice has to fall out with them as well. I don't make people choose sides. They do whatever they want. And so just because, someone's fallen out, or I've fallen out with someone, doesn't mean to say that they have to fall out with them as well. So Alice was going to be meeting them, and it's like, and I remember I'd been told that I shouldn't go on the Saturday, because Alice was going to be meeting them, and I said, and that night I felt really bad. I actually considered taking some pills. I really did, because living on my own, if I took something and died in the night or whatever, no one would find my body for weeks. They wouldn't. I mean, with the exception of my friend Samantha, who phones up, pretty much every day. In fact, I've been worrying that she's about to phone any time. She didn't hear from me for several days. She'd probably start getting worried and then call the police or something. But and it just sort of popped through my head of, well, if I died, at least Alice would find me the next morning, and at least I wouldn't just rot away for several days a week before I was found. So yeah, but that night I felt really angry about it, and I went, fuck 'em. That was what my attitude. By the morning, I said to myself, no, fuck 'em. Because, I thought about it for about 20 minutes, honestly. I just wrestled with my thoughts, and I just yanked my head away from that mindset, and I went into a new, defiant mental space. And I decided I was going to go to Sparkle on the Saturday. But I wouldn't come. But I'd only go to Alice as far as the event, and then we'd separate and meet up later or whatever. because I wasn't going to force her to choose between me or them. That's childish. So it was like, yeah, fuck 'em, I'm going. Manchester is my home. It's my city. And if they decide that this town ain't big enough for the both of us, then they're the ones that can fuck off home and leave, because I won't. And excuse me for using such language, but it really comes down to that. I am not going to let someone bully me out of going to the biggest trans events of the year that just so happens into my city. If they've got a problem with me, then they can either deal with it or they can not bother coming. Because I'm not going to compromise. It's not like I'm expecting them to hang around with me. And during that time, one of them saw me and just glared at me. And another two, I don't know if they observed me or not, but, like I say, one of them glared at me as if I was doing something wrong, and I just, didn't give her the satisfaction of, thinking I was bothered by it. I just looked at her for a couple of seconds, then looked away as if she was a stranger. I was just like, okay, whatever. Why would I let someone who doesn't like me anymore, affect my time? It's like, okay, that's in the past. I've dealt with that stuff. Not going to do that anymore. So that's the way it works now. It really is. So, last year I didn't go to Sparkle because I wasn't out. And even if I was, I just was too, worried about that kind of thing. No, this time it was like, no, doing it. So, and it was a lovely day. Spotted a smiling face that I recognise and know from Twitter, and we chatted and, met a couple of LGBT police officers from Merseyside and West Yorkshire. Told them about my coping strategy, did some selfies that got tweeted out. So it was really nice. So then the next thing was a month later, just over a month later, and it was Manchester Pride. And oh gosh, I had such an amazing day. Now, the start of Pride was screwed up by the TERFs. So what happened was, so the TERFs, Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists, basically they're a bunch of feminists, some of them are lesbians, and they can't stand the idea of transgender people, trans women. They don't really give a shit about transgender men. They do a little bit, but not too much. But they're the ones that bring out the crappy tropes about how, trans women are just men in wigs or men in a frock, and basically the so I've been told by someone at the LGBT Foundation in Manchester. She's a lesbian for a long time, older lady now, and she explained that back in the 60s, 70s kind of time, where the feminist movement was, growing quite large, there were some of them that had this kind of, they wanted safe spaces. They had a man-free zone, and that man-free zone was generally their home. To the point that they wouldn't even allow the gas man to come over and read the meter. It would have to be a gas woman if such a thing existed then. And that mentality hasn't really changed. So, as far as they're concerned, trans women and men that are, infiltrate or intruding on the women's space. And for trans men, which are women who become men, transition into men, they're gender traitors because they're leaving the girl club. So people like me, not allowed to join the girl club. People like them, they're just traitors for leaving the girl club. And they're quite awful about it. So what happened was, at the start of Pride, just waiting, and here is a picture of me before it all goes on, so so we're all waiting for for the march to start, and there's these big queues, no, not there, where is it, So there's this long pile of queue of people, and just as the music starts, out come the TERFs, and you can see how you know it's, and the police didn't do anything. They didn't. They refused to get rid of them, and I think it's because they do take advantage. Basically it's like, how dare you tell me I'm not allowed to do this? You're discriminating against me because I'm a lesbian. So I think the police were so scared of being labelled as anti-lesbian at the start of Manchester Pride that they let them get away with it. So they ended up doing this slow march. Well, you can see the in the background you got your floats, and they're just standing, waiting. They can't move because these have stopped, and then they start. They allow them to do a slow march. Well, when they moved past me, I kind of took a step out and I put my thumb down, to basically say how I didn't appreciate what they were doing, and one of them sort of tried squaring up to me. I mean, I wasn't going to be getting angry at them, and it's like one swore at me because I screwed up a diatribe about me not being allowed to be a lesbian. I mean, even had members of the crowd booing them at one point. And it's like, you can't be a lesbian. I said, I'm not. I'm asexual. I'm not sexually attracted to men or women. And she got pissy at me, was saying, women don't have penises. I said, that's fine. I don't want mine. You can have it when I've got that fixed. And I laughed at her again, and all she could do was swear at me, which means she didn't have an answer. So they slowly walk on, and after the parade crawls by, it was annoying because they'd move, the floats would move and stop and move and stop and move and stop. Normally, it just goes at a walking space, just constantly going by. But instead, it's this moving and stopping because basically they're getting stuck behind this log jam of someone doing this really slow march, or a group of people. Eventually they must have got rid of them somehow, because I know that by halfway through they disappeared. But I was angry because what would happen is you'd be enjoying it, and next thing you know it's gone and stopped again. And when it stopped again, there was the Sparkle people there, the transgender charity. So what I did was I walked out to her and I said, but I thought you should know the reason why you're stopping, all this stopping starting, is because the TERFs went and crashed the start of the show. And they went, and the couple of people there, did they? Oh, those people are so horrible. Yeah, I said, but I kind of got back at them a bit, give them a thumb down, and just told them I was asexual, which really confused them. I had a couple of the people of the crowd booing them, and it's like, really? Yeah. You know what? Come with us. Come and march with us. And so I did. It was amazing. I took part in Manchester Pride. I only went to watch it, and I ended up taking part in it. And I'm just going to read what I put, because when I got home I wrote this down, and I said, as I write this, I'm feeling rather emotional, because it was the most amazing thing I've ever felt as a trans woman. I stuck out because everyone else was wearing grey t-shirt with "trans is not a choice, transphobia is," and there I am wearing a bright red polka dot dress. I was waving a flag, waving to the crowd, thousands upon thousands of happy people cheering their support for us and the cause we were championing. At least 4 times I had to dab tears with my eyes because I was close to bursting into tears of joy, and it was, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and some people noticed and cheered again. Honestly, my heart was bursting with pride for myself and thankfulness for the crowd as well that I was receiving, all the support. I've got tears running down my face as I type this out, as I recall it. I had people shout out to me how they loved my outfit, blowing kisses my way, all sorts of ways to express their love and support. My trans coping strategy went on positive overload, a genuine positive vibe lottery win. Even those words can't express how wonderful it felt. Before and afterwards, I got some more people saying how great I looked. Talked to me, asking where I got my dress from. Told them Lindy Bop. And then I spoke to some other people as well. As you know, and then afterwards. So, being a model maker, I rely on certain supplies of things. So one of the things that's useful is tubes, plastic tube, and just small diameter, like maybe 5 mil or something. Now, buying that at a model show is really expensive, but what happens at Pride is that the people doing the marching, they give like flags out to people, so you might get something from Thomas Cook had one. They don't have it anymore, obviously. But Banks and Asda or whoever, things like that. So they have trans members of their company, and they do a march thing, and it's great. And like I say, give flags out and sweets and bands, and I got a T-shirt from the Sparkle people, and I basically went around picking up all the straws after it all get, because people just dropped them on the floor. A straw that's about 30 centimetres long, that'll cost me £1.29 at a model shop, and they've got hundreds of them just lying on the streets. So I decided, I'll go and pick up a bunch. So after I'd pick up a bunch, stick them in my bag, I ended up chatting to a trans man outside a cafe. And while we were chatting, he noticed that there was, the religious zealot bigots who decided they were going to protest the people in Pride. And it's kind of funny because when I went around the corner where they were, you could see them at the side bawling out through a megaphone. Couldn't damn it hear them in the slightest, because the cheers from the crowd were drowning them out. So that was amazing. So I've got the I was chatting to this trans man, and by the way, something while I think about it. So, when I was talking the Sparkle thing from the month before, from July, July. There was a trans man there who'd written a book, and he was like doing book signings and talks and things. And there was this tent, and I just walked in there just to see what it was. Didn't know what it was, and there he was with his wife, and he's got a beard and sort of chunky, muscly, all that kind of stuff. I mean, looks like he keeps fit and stuff. Goes to the gym a lot. And if I didn't know, I wouldn't have known he was a trans man. Wouldn't know he's trans at all. He looked like a guy to me. So. I just sort of asked some questions, things like that, because I'd never actually spoken to a trans man before in that way. And so, said he was married, and, sort of mentioned sex life. And I said, I got a question for you. If you don't want to answer it, don't answer it. You don't feel you have to. If if it's too personal, I wouldn't be offended for you to say, yeah, please not. And I said, so, okay, so, because he explained that, so he had like a chunk of flesh missing around his arm, and that's how they make a phallus. Now, something to bear in mind while I think about it, a double off topic thing, but it is related. If I decide to have bottom surgery, as they call it, so, change my penis into a vagina, if I decide to have surgery, I'll have 1, maybe 2 operations for the surgery. For a trans man, they've got to go through like 15 to get it, because basically they've got to take something that doesn't exist, a penis, and make one. And that's what they had around his arms. They're all tattooed, so I couldn't even tell. but basically the top flesh is missing. And so I, like I say, so I asked him, because he said he'd had, work done. I said, I got a question for you. If you, like I say, if you don't mind me asking, feel free to say so. Free, you don't want to talk about it. I said, so how do you get it up? How do you get an erection? And he explained how the surgery, some of the surgery he had done, he'd had the womb taken out and the cervix and all, basically all the ladies' plumbing, the ovaries and everything. That was all taken out, and now there was a cavity. And what they do is they have a bag, a surgical, with surgical fluid in it. So it's, it's non-reactant. And if he wants to have sex with his wife to pump it up, he literally pumps it up. He just squeezes his abdomen and it pumps up his penis. How amazing is the world now that you know this exists? Isn't that fantastic? I just... It's amazing what people, what the doctors can do these days. I just found that amazing. So, there you go. So anyway, so I was chatting to a trans man outside this cafe, and he noticed that the religious people were in the cafe. So we decided to separate, and I said, I'm going to go talk to him. So I went in there, and I kind of gave him a hard time, because they'd come to, to Manchester Pride to, to be bigots. It's like, okay, I'm going to give them, as kind of, I wasn't going to be mean or nasty or anything. I was just going to do exactly like the previous guy, And it was quite comical, actually, because there was one guy who kept calling me sir, and I said, please, don't call me sir. I'm not a sir. I'm a trans woman. Look at my outfit. I don't even look like a sir in the slightest. And he replied that, he couldn't because I was a man. I pointed out that he could, and because from his belief system, he's been given free will, he's deliberately choosing to offend me. So after he called me sir 3 more times, I said, right, look, the next time you call me sir, I will call you a name that you don't want me to use. I will call you arsehole. Now, it is entirely up to you whether I have to call you arsehole or not from now on. So, about 15 times after me calling him an arsehole, he got annoyed at me and said I was being abusive. And I reminded him, I said, I'm sorry, I told you whether I called you arsehole or not was entirely up to you. It was entirely in your hands whether I should call you arsehole or not. You could have used a gender-neutral term like you, as I'd already suggested, but no, you decided you wanted to offend me. Well, isn't it interesting how you're the one that now feels you're being offended? It was okay, basically I reminded him of Matthew 7. I said, it's interesting how, you were okay with dishing out the offence of calling me sir, but don't like it when the offence is going in his direction. And, at one point, at another point, after saying his beliefs were awful when he tried justifying slavery and genocide, he said, you came to us, we didn't come to you. I said, you came from Liverpool, because his accent was from Liverpool. I said, you came from Liverpool, you came from a completely different city, just so you could hate on LGBT people. How's that Matthew 7 stuff going for you again? Hypocritical, don't you think? So, it was interesting, but it was, it was enjoyable giving them a taste of their own medicine and then not liking it. So, so then, pretty much not much else, but on the 2nd or 3rd of, that was the end of the summer. I mean, I just started living as I would living. And there wasn't a lot of new stuff happening, but LGBT Foundation in Manchester, they have some voice coaching every now and again, and I got myself on the list, and I was invited, and so on the 2nd and 3rd of November, I took part in a 2-day voice coaching course, and it was challenging. I learned a lot. I'm still working on it. Unfortunately, I'm still on the edge of a cold, so my voice is a bit gravelly at times. So, I've still got to pick up some stuff. But body language was one of the things that I noticed. So that was useful. How to sit and things of that nature. So, so obviously with my mum disowning me, it's coming up to Christmas. It's and I decided that I was going to go away rather than stay here and feel miserable on Christmas Day, because normally I'd be going down and having sharing some presents, sharing some happiness and family support and love and stuff like that. So so I decided, rather than sit at home and feel depressed, I'm going to go and visit my friend in Plymouth. So I went down, and so what I did was, so I bought presents, and I was a little bit, so I basically had presents and had a card, Christmas card. Now for my brother and my stepdad, I put from Laura. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year from Laura. For my mum, I didn't. I didn't want to give her a reason to push me away, to reject me, to send the present back or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Something like that. I didn't want to do that. So so I just, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I didn't sign it. So the day before, I was going to be going. Sorry, the day before. So 2 days before, I phoned up my dad and asked him if he would drop by and pick up the presents for family. I'm going to be going away. Can you drop by and pick up the presents? And that was the first time he'd seen me as Laura, seen me as a female. I'd have changed my name by the time last time he saw me. Anyway, so so he picked up, the presents from me, dropped off stuff for me. I got some chocolates and £40. But I was a bit saddened because the cards that I got from him, they didn't have Laura. They didn't call me Laura. They didn't sign it to me, and it's like it just felt as if they don't call me Laura, then I don't exist to them like that. It was kind of, it was difficult. So it's like, I don't know, it just, I don't feel accepted in that way. So although my dad's all right mate, how you doing, that kind of stuff, and he talks to me and stuff like that, it just sort of makes me feel like, is he unable to call me Laura, even if it's just to write it on a card, a symbolic gesture? I don't know. It's a bit confusing because he just doesn't really talk. That's the problem. So yeah, but anyway, I went down to Devon. I had a nice time. Bought a computer, came back, although I haven't managed to get it going yet. I'm not sure if I bumped the heatsink inside the water cooler and it's not working properly. It kept shutting down, so I'm wondering whether there's something going on there. But anyway, so 8th of January was my birthday, and I had no calls from family. But I bought some makeup and some flowers, a bottle of wine. And I spent the day doing mainly railway modelling work, which I enjoy, so that's fine. And sort of with no contact from mum, which would have been the ideal opportunity to bridge the divide, I made a decision. So back in March the 30th, my mum disowned me, and I took the opportunity to turn a bad thing into a good thing, and used it as a catalyst to get rid of all my male clothes, leave myself with that one set that's left over, and they're just sat on top of a cupboard in the hallway. I haven't even looked at them since, and that one set that I've kept in case she changes her mind. I've made the decision that I'm going to give it until the 30th of March, or the 31st of March, I suppose. So it'll be 1 year for my mum to come to terms with it, to change her mind, to, if she doesn't by then, I'm not going to do the creeping thing in to get her, to help her get used to me being trans. I'm not going to do, I think I've given it enough time. I think given it a year, I've been prepared for a year to compromise. I'm prepared to compromise for a year. And on if I haven't heard from her by the 30th, on the 31st, I'm going to get rid of that last set of guy clothes. There won't be any more guy clothes left. Now I'm not doing this to rub a nose in it or anything, but I'm also not going to pretend I'm something I'm not either. I don't want to pretend that I'm a guy, because I'm not. That's not how I'm living. That's not how I'm behaving. I can't do that anymore. My screen seems to have frozen. So, yeah, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to compromise in that regard. I've given it a year to compromise, to sort of go down as a guy, to try and, help her get through it. But if it's going to be a year, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. That option will have expired. I'll have given it a year, and I think a year is a fair amount of time. It's not like I'm expecting her to, to come running and just sort of say, yeah, I just accept you, you're my daughter now. No, of course not. It's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of talking. Maybe it's going to be a case of, the LGBT Foundation in Manchester, they do counselling. Maybe she can go there. Maybe that'll help her. But she needs to talk to someone, or, even if she doesn't want to talk to me, that's fine. But she needs to accept that I'm trans. That's who I am. That's how I live, and it's not going to change. And she's going to have to get used to that fact. And it's not. I'm not doing this to be mean. I think giving it a year is enough time to be able, to make a compromise. And, when that time expires, she's going to have to accept that this is how I'm going to be. We can talk on the phone. She doesn't have to look at me. But, the first time if that ever happens, I hope it does. But if we end up, oh my gosh, is this still live? It seems to have frozen. So it'll be. I think I've been reasonable and giving enough time to come to terms with it and to compromise. And after that, I can't do that anymore. I've just got to be who I am. And I'm changing forever. The time that I can be a half, part, to put on guy clothes, to pretend to be a guy just to make her feel comfortable, that time will have gone. That expiration date, the sell-by date on that will run out on the that will run out on the 31st of March. And this is the package that I come in now. It's hard. It's hard making that kind of thing. I mean, it's a deadline. I mean, she doesn't. I don't know if anybody in my family watches it, or whether the word will get to them, because I'm not. I don't really want them to hear that. I just want it will just expire. I don't want to put any pressure on them. That's the reason why I don't want them to find out, in a way, why I'm doing this online. I don't know. It just popped through. It has to come out, I suppose. But it really all does come down to, I've been prepared to compromise for a year. I'm still prepared to compromise. Still got 2 months left. Slightly over 2 months left. But like I say, for my own well-being, I can't go back to that. I'm prepared to do it, but it's going to be denying. Effectively, it's a form of denial. And although I'm not denying it for myself, I'm sort of denying it for her. I don't know. It's kind of confusing to explain it, because it's like, I don't know. I think I've explained it enough. Of it is, that I've given it a year to do the compromising part. And I'm happy to compromise by talking on the phone, but I'm not prepared to pretend to be something I'm not to make my mum comfortable. I am what I am. And the funny thing about it is that, my mum always said, just be yourself. Well, I am being myself. And I think one of I think out of the whole thing with my mum, the hardest part is having a sad reality, because when I until that day, she told me that her love for me was unconditional. And it's hard because it was hard to want to be hit by the fact that she can never ever ever tell me that again. Because even if she does come to terms with it, there'll have been a year or however long it is until she makes contact again, if she does, assuming that she does. There will have been a time when she decided to withhold her love because she wasn't happy about how I was living. And it's like, who's in charge of my life here? I'm in charge of my life. That's the reality here. I'm the independent person now. And, it's not up to... it's not up to her to live to tell me how I should live my life. And equally, it's not up to me to have to compromise myself to live up to the expectations she expects me to, to fulfill. So I've just got to be myself. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm finally being myself. And as hard as it's going to be, she's got to accept that. It's not... And I'm not doing it to be hateful or vindictive or trying to shove it in her face. It's just a reality that I spent decades denying myself, denying what I needed in order to make other people comfortable, her being one of the most important ones. So, and I can't do that anymore. And it's not fair for her to expect me to capitulate to what she needs me to be. I would expect that any parent, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I would expect any parent to want the best for their child, whatever that may be. To want their child to be happy. And I found more happiness like this than I have for a very long time. So it's very difficult to, you know, to be told that she can't have me in her life because I've made a choice for my own happiness. That's not fair. And as I said when I last spoke to her, I've been doing so well. She's not going to take it away from me. That's not being hateful. That's me just describing how it is. I don't hate my mum. I love my mum. It's the reason why I'm talking about her so much. It's the reason why it kind of sticks up, in me. And because, like I say, I'm saddened by, she told me pretty much all my life, she told me all my life that her love was unconditional and she can never tell me that again. And that's the bit that hurts. That's the bit that, upsets me the most. Because what she's basically said was untrue. She may have meant it at the time she said it, but when I made a decision that she wasn't happy with, that's when she says, that's when she decides that she's got to withhold her love for that. Now, she may still love me, but she's not loving me as me. She's loving me as the thing that she wanted me to be. She wants me to be the son, and I can't do that anymore. And really, I can't tell you before I was about 7, when I first realised that I wanted to be a girl. But, I've been this. All my memories, all my past memories, with the exception of a very small child, just a couple of, screen grab equivalents, really. Just a few snapshot memories. With the exception of those, all the life that I can remember, I've wanted to be a girl, and now I am. And that has brought me so much benefit that I actually think it's kind of cruel for it to accept me to be something I'm not. To pretend to be something I'm not. To pretend to be a son. And I can't do that anymore. I mean, I do find it difficult there are trans women who, they did the family thing. So they got a wife and they got kids and all that kind of stuff. And, then dad becomes to transition, and it's like, she's still dad, which is kind of feels weird. So yeah, that's a weird. Okay, good. I do seem to be live still. So yeah, that's the hard part. That really is the hard part. So yeah, I'm coming up to on the 12th of January this year. It was my 1-year anniversary of living as a woman entirely 100% of the time. I still have February when I changed my name, so that's my next annual, my next anniversary. And of course it's interesting because, Laura Jade, my surname, I'll have been that name for a year. That's my identity. I don't know if there's another person in the world with my name exactly as it is. I may have been the first and only person. So Laura Jade is going to be 1 year old on the 24th. A part of me thinks I might have a second birthday. I got January the 8th, which is my natural, the birthday I was born on. And then, maybe the 24th of February can be my rebirth day. When I was reborn into, as me. Wasn't the first time I started, being it, but so yeah, that's it. It's so that's my transition so far. I think and I'm doing well for it. As much as I've got the sadness about my mum, actually, there's been far more positive stuff than negative stuff. And then people I've spoken to, she'll come around. I hope that's the case. I really do. And I'll be so happy if she can come to terms with it. I really will. Because the thing about it is, my mum's got so much she can help me with. So much I can learn from her. She's a wonderful woman. And, if I can grow up to be like her, I mean, I won't be exactly like her, obviously. But if I can grow up to be like her, I don't think I'll have failed at life. I think I'll be quite happy. Yeah. So let's have a look at some of the comments now. So I'm going to have to make it a bit bigger so I can read it. So I think I've missed some of the early comments, but thank you very much for those who saw it. Kebab and a bottle of wine, breakfast of champions. Did I say breakfast meant dinner? Someone who's been drunk too much, I'd say. I don't know who's the historian. Dr. Rich FG. Yes, thank you, Leighton. Happy Trans Day. Some kind of religious nuts persecution thing. I'll never understand it. Yeah. Yes, still live. Awkward. Amiga Nut says, I'm a straight, half white, half black, 60+ dad with 3 adult kids. This just breaks my heart. Just want to hug and say it's going to be okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Excuse me, my voice is. I'm going to stop in a moment. But so yeah, I'm a year in. I've been doing this every day, all day, for a year, with the exception of 1 hour at the end of March. And when I come to that end of March, that'll have been a year exactly. And again, I know I talk about clothes as if that's an important thing. It's an outward manifestation. The female clothes are the outward manifestation of who I am on the inside. It's how I can express who I am on the inside. And so the reason why I mention clothes is because it's a way that you can see who I am. It's a way I can express who I am. And so when I talk about, I've got one set of guy clothes, and at the end of on the 31st of March, I'll be getting rid of them, if my mum hasn't got in contact by then, of course. It's because that way, because that'll be the 1 year anniversary of the last time I wore any guy clothes. And effectively, when I was doing that, I was pretending to be a guy, which is something I'm not. Well, I'm certainly not anymore. So, it's that's going to be a major part of my transition. Because I'm not going back. I'm not going back to living like that. I'm not going back to living as Dave or Cliff even, Cliff Jumper. I'm just going to be me. And the me is who you can see now. And I'm happy being me. I like, when I look like this, when I look up the screen right now, I can see who I am reflected back. This is the gender euphoria, like I was speaking about when I get changed and I put on my makeup and then I go in the bathroom and I put the wig on. you know. And the only reason I got the wig on is because I'm thin on top. I got like almost like a skunk kind of thin, you know, a little band that goes over the top where you can see more scalp through it than hair. What I'm hoping is once I start taking the hormones, one of the effects it can have is to restart hair follicles that weren't working or weren't being used properly, because the testosterone is what causes the male pattern baldness type stuff. So by having the estrogen and the testosterone blockers, that may start the hairs on the top from regrowing. I hope so. You know, I'm not a religious person, so I don't do the praying, but that's about the nearest I can get to, you know, really, really, really wanting something to be the case. So, yeah, that's it. That's the end of this stream. And perhaps when it comes to something, maybe, you know, maybe not the 31st, but maybe the 1st of April, which will be the day after I've got rid of the guy clothes, maybe I'll make a live stream then. For today, I'm done. I mean, I've been talking for quite a while. I don't know how long it's been. 3 hours and 40 minutes, crikey. I didn't realise it was that. It feels like it's been an hour or so. But obviously I had a lot to talk about. And it's a year. I mean, effectively I just gave you a year of my life. So, yeah, I'm going to get going. So thank you everybody for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for the well wishes. I can't see them now because it's all shuffled up, but I will have a look at them later. And so, you know, although the end of this did sound like a bit of a downer, again, it comes down to my coping strategy. I have so many more positive experiences than I do bad ones. And that's what I focus on. I'm not going to drown myself in the misery. I'm not going to self-harm or take a bunch of pills. No, I'm not going to, you know, I spent too much time letting other people control how I live my life. I'm not going to let anybody control how I live how I own my happiness. I'm owning my happiness for me. I'm not pretending to be something I'm not for other people. I'm fortunate in a way because I don't have a wife and I don't have kids and I don't have to worry, you know, about anybody else. I mean, I'm not, you know, I'm disabled. I'm not even working, so I don't even have to worry about work colleagues and, you know, bullying from work colleagues or any of that kind of stuff. You know, I can be completely selfish, you know, so far in my transition, because I'm able to say, yes, this is me, and I'm living as I am, and I don't have to worry about, am I going to be upsetting family? Well, maybe that one. I don't have to worry that, you know, I don't have children to worry about whether they're going to get bullied because of me. I don't have to worry about whether my wife is going to accept me because I don't have one. You know, is she going to be okay with this? Well, like I say, again, I don't have to worry about that kind of thing. I can be selfish. So, like I say, I'm being me, and I'm happy being me. I really am. It's what I dreamed of for a long, long, long time. And I'm not going back. As I said earlier, I got rid of all the guy clothes with the exception of one set. Going back to living as a guy would be very expensive. You know, it's a perfectly good justification to stay as I am now. And, you know, like I say, I'm transitioning. It's as simple as that. I'm not going back. I know exactly what I need, and I'm doing it. So, like I say, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you'll watch again. So, have a good night, everybody, and take care. Bye-bye.